Hello, YouTube. Welcome to episode 23 of D&D Sports Chat. We're going live here in just a moment. Stay tuned. What in the hell is this guy doing here? If you could just get a load of these specs, they have orange sides on them and gold frame.
Styling and profile?
Yeah, that is. They actually do look like Ric Flair, but a very cheap knockoff.
Oh, yeah, Five Below.
Five Below.
Yeah. I like them, though. I needed sunglasses.
Yeah, you know.
My face has got burnt up quite a bit
Gotta
this
do
summer.
it.
It's hot in Michigan.
I'll say it is.
90-plus degrees every day.
I've been wanting to clean out my car before I go up north, but I just, I can't do it in this heat. I need to just vacuum it out real quick.
Can't do it in this heat.
You know what I'm saying? All right. Let's see what we got here. You ready to go live here?
Absolutely.
Stay tuned.
Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode number 23 of D&D Sports Chat, coming to you live from the studio here in Garden City, Michigan. It is Wednesday, July 27th, 2016. I'm your host, Derek, alongside my co-host, as always, Mr. Dan Bartley. What's up, man?
Another beautiful day in Garden City,
beautiful,
Michigan.
Hot summer day. We are approaching the dog days of summer here, folks. August is just around the corner, and it is sweltering out.
Beautiful time if you're a baseball fan.
Yes.
Beautiful time to just be alive in this great country of ours. Just don't watch CNN.
Yeah, don't watch the news. Stay away from CNN, Fox News, the ones that like to suck off to everything that's just going on in this
That's
world.
depression. We're a sports world.
Yeah, we're spiraling down into that. We don't talk anything news related unless it's entertainment or anything like that. But we try to stay on the topic of sports because it's what livens people's spirits. You know, I mean, if it wasn't for sports, I think this whole entire country would suffer from severe depression. So thank
Fair
God
enough.
for sports, right? So, kicking off tonight's show, I know that normally we have an odd story of the week, but your odd story is not necessarily that odd.
It's not.
It's
It's
more,
really not.
it makes my heart warm because I feel like I got you into a show that you were kind of a little bit unsure about in the beginning. I'm not really sure about this. But I said, if you love dragons and you love death and blood and gore, you're going to love Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And my God, it took me, Steve and Alex, probably 4 months to get through this entire show. It took you and Kara less than a month.
I would say a month.
It was about a month.
I actually confirmed. I did.
Was it a
talk
month?
To Kara, and
Oh
she
my
said
God.
maybe a month and a half. And we did a lot of binge watching, as they
You
call it,
did.
as the kids call it these days.
Yes,
and,
you did.
And it was a lot of good popcorn, water sipping nights. Watching Game
That's a
of
long.
Thrones.
You got to figure
and they
each
are long episodes.
1 hour episodes, 10 episodes a season. So you're definitely.
We did put in some time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But the thing is it was well worth it. You can't beat it. We had a lot of good nights watching Game of Thrones. I was intrigued. And it's difficult for me to sit there and watch 5 episodes in a row. I don't know if we quite did that.
60
But
hours.
It's difficult to put in that kind of
Yes.
amount of time to watch Game of Thrones, but we did. I got really. It just took me, and I was right in front of the couch. I was right there, dead center, watching that show, and I was hooked. I got hooked right off the bat after season 1. I wasn't real sure. I heard so much great things from you and others.
Yep.
And I try to stay away from Facebook and Twitter because that ruins
Yeah.
television
Oh,
shows
yeah.
left and right. So I try to stay away from that. But it was remarkable how quick I was able to finish that.
Well, you joined in at a good time when the show had already ended,
and that was a good plan because I was like,
Yeah.
okay, if I am going to sit down and actually watch this, I'm not going to just jump right into where the season's at now because I'll be clueless.
Yeah.
And after watching it, I definitely would have been clueless because
a lot of storylines.
There's so many characters. There's so many stories. Different character development. Certain characters are screwing over this character. This character's doing this. It's a great show with great character development, and it has a lot of scenes that are just dramatic and just pull at your heart, make you angry, make you feel for a character, which personally what I want to feel. That's exactly what I want to feel, is emotion for that character. And personally, I kind of gravitate towards Khaleesi, Jon Snow, more than anybody. I think.
Are you House Stark or House Lannister?
House Stark.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I was totally House Lannister because I liked Tyrion.
Tyrion or Tywin? Do you like one of those two?
Tywin was his father. He was evil. I hated Tywin, but
he's
Tyrion,
though.
He was all right. But Tyrion is still great to me. You know, I would probably, even though I'm House Stark, I would probably get a Lannister shirt only because I think they're cooler. If you can get all the house, but you can get Baratheon, Targaryen, Stark, Lannister shirts. You know, whatever kind of, you know, house you are or whatever fan you are. But I mean, yeah, the show itself is just really well done. The Battle of the Bastards, which was the second to last show before this recent finale, that scene, $10 million to make.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
Most movies don't even come close to that as a freaking, you know, that's not even what they, you know, cost to make most movies these days. $10 million for like a 10-minute scene, $1 million per minute.
That's
for all the CGI and I mean crazy, but
Jon Snow being buried underneath the bodies and all everything that was going on.
Yep.
And we did just finish the final episode of the season last night, and I was just sitting there like, oh, this is how it's going to end, and it ended just like that. Yeah. And that is one of the only times I was able to predict it.
Yeah. The last episode was pretty predictable. I mean, obviously, I don't want to say too much, but. It was a great season. I think every season gets better and better. A significant person or character dies if you look and remember at each finale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, a significant person or character did get killed. So season 7, which will not even be back on until next summer, we got to wait till a whole year.
Well, filming for this, I can see
it takes
would
months.
Take a long time for filming.
Yeah, it ain't quite like Walking Dead.
For editing.
Yeah, Walking Dead usually is only off the air for 6 months, but you need a full year for this show. So, you know, Game of Thrones is it's up there, and it's not even a case of just, you know, latching onto the bandwagon. Everybody talks about like Walking Dead. I mean, I just so happen to love the top 2 rated shows on television.
I do too.
And
I'm
you
a big
know,
Walking Dead fan
it's not because my arm's being twisted to watch them. They are just awesome shows. So anybody out there, Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, if you're not already watching, I urge you strongly to start doing that because this is the best time to watch them. And that's when we started watching it. We were season 5 and ended, and that's how we finished. You got to do it when the seasons are over.
One final thought before we conclude here. Who is Jon Snow's father? And I know the comic books have a certain guy lined up or
Ned
whoever,
Stark.
But obviously it's not Ned Stark.
It is actually... Okay, so you remember that scene
did you go ahead and
do you remember
Google search this in the comic books? Because I know the comic books have all the answers.
Ned is obviously Jon Snow's, spoiler alert, uncle. And that scene where it was a young Ned Stark, that was actually a Targaryen who he was caring for. That was his birth mother. So his mother is a Targaryen. His father, I actually forgot who it was, but I did look ahead and I Google searched it.
I figured you would.
There's that whole equation or whatever it is. I think it's R plus J or something R plus. Oh God, what was it? Something equals J. R plus something equals J. What was that?
I'm not sure. But
R plus L equals J. That was the fan theory for Game of Thrones.
Fan theory.
Yes,
there's tons of those out there.
He's actually the son of Rhaegar Targaryen, and his mother was Lyanna Stark. So that's where that comes from. So Lyanna Stark, which was Ned's sister, was the one. I'm sorry, Rhaegar Targaryen was the father. His sister, Lyanna, was who he was talking to, and that's who he swore to protect when Jon got older. So that was a really good storytelling way to show that.
This show you definitely can't skip
No,
around.
you can't
skip episodes because
you can't be like Alex Tomlinson and fall asleep when we're like on our 3rd episode in the night, and you miss an episode, then you come back the following week and say, "Oh, I missed that," you know. So you can't miss. Like literally, you miss a minute of that show, and
there's so many different stories.
Yeah,
and they seem to.
There's
add
at least 4
more
main
and more.
stories.
Like the Hound is back, and you know where the Hound's headed. And I'm not a big Hound guy, but
I like the Hound.
I like the Mountain. I like the big
I knew that Hound wasn't dead. I had a feeling. I didn't have to look into it or anything like that. I kind of had an idea that he was going to come back, and it was nice to see him come back later on towards the end of the season. So I'm really looking forward to season 7. It's going to be a much shorter season. It's only going to be six episodes, I believe, instead of the usual 10. And I think they're only doing season 7 and then season 8, which will, I think, only be 5 or 6 episodes as well. So there's only 2 more seasons left, and then that's it. George R. R. Martin's calling it quits.
Well,
so
you can only extend shows for so long, because if you drag it out, then it's going to become, as much as I like this show, it's going to become True Blood. And True Blood was kind of dragged out a little bit too long.
Yeah. True Blood, I kind of lost track after the 2nd or 3rd season, and I kind of was just like, yeah, I'm not really into this anymore.
Yeah. So then there's that. So Game of Thrones, I finished that off. I'm looking forward to the next season. I think it's going to be just a blockbuster season full of action. I'm looking forward to seeing what goes on with the Stark family, what happens with the remaining Stark
and now
family,
the new leadership, too, now that Ramsay Bolton is now long. Yeah, now that Ramsay,
that man is a savage.
He was great. Oh my God! He actually auditioned
savage.
For the role of Jon Snow.
Really?
And they loved how he was. They loved how he auditioned for the role of Ramsay. They gave him that role. They said that he played a bad guy better than anything. So that was really an awesome death scene.
And they had the perfect woman that. Amelia Clarke, I do believe her name is, for Khaleesi. Yeah,
Khaleesi. Amelia Clarke, if you don't know her, she was also Sarah Connor in the most recent Terminator movie. Beautiful girl. Oh, my God, absolutely beautiful.
I agree.
I wish we could see more of her, if you know what I mean. As much as we do as the other female actresses. A lot of nudity in this show, too.
There is
so you better be prepared for that. And not just different sex nudity. We're talking about same sex on same sex too. So if you're
there's something for everyone in this show.
If you're homophobic, I wouldn't watch
graphic.
this.
It's HBO. What do you expect?
Exactly. AMC, I believe, or what? I'm sorry. I'm trying to think. I think it was Walking Dead had actually got turned down by HBO, and they went with Game of Thrones instead. So, I mean, they still won out. I mean, Game of Thrones won out with HBO and AMC won out with Walking Dead. But just imagine how much more bloody and gory Walking Dead could be if it was on HBO or Showtime or Max or something.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's that.
The thing is if it was on Cinemax or Starz or one of those others, would it get the same kind of hype it's getting with AMC?
Maybe.
We'll talk about that in later days.
Yeah.
But let's get into some sports.
Yes.
Here.
So, today, it was a very surprising day. A very rare sweep, nonetheless, at Fenway for our Detroit Tigers. They actually were able to sweep the Red Sox right out of their own stadium with a very narrow 4-3 victory. Miguel Cabrera hitting a bomb in the top of the 9th to send the Tigers and all the fans home happy.
And not the Red Sox fans.
No, not at all. And especially when you can go in there. I don't care what the scores are. We could have easily lost 2 out of 3 in this series, which I actually predicted last week. I thought for sure they were going to come in here and just crap the bed like they have been. But they stayed well. The pitching was solid. Bullpen, not so much. But, really, Frankie Rodriguez, I think, saving 2 out of 3 games in this series. And Verlander pitched well. Mm-hmm. Bruce Rondon, he kind of showed.
Good today.
Yeah, he did. He showed a little bit. He was actually my biggest chump of last weekend, but he did turn a corner a little bit, and he kind of got back into his own swing of things. Michael Fulmer, a solid outing today. It's a shame he didn't get a decision. His second straight game without a decision. Went 7 2/3, gave up 3 runs, including a solo shot, I believe he gave up 2. But
he gave up 2 bombs.
2 bombs today.
To Pedroia and
that's right.
Bogarts.
Yeah, my guy Bogarts. So I was kind of hoping that the Tigers, were going to do well, but at the same if you're looking at fantasy baseball, I do have Xander Bogaerts, so he did well for me today. But the Tigers came out on top, and that's all that matters. But a lot of positives to take away from this game. Obviously, what we had mentioned in the in the pre-show. James McCann hit a solo shot for the Tigers. Victor Martinez 4 singles, including a walk, drove in 2 runs. And, these are guys that have struggled mightily as of late. Miguel Cabrera starting to get the pop back in his bat, and this is right around the time that we start to see Miguel and even Victor start kind of coming around. But James McCann, in light of the trade rumors, there's talk that Jonathan Lucroy might be trade bait for the Milwaukee Brewers, and we might be giving up somebody to get him. But McCann is a guy that we talked about this last week. Our catching is a weakness this year. Not so much defensively because, he does have the McCannon, as we've seen before. He can throw guys out in a heartbeat. But at the same time, offensively and just consistently just not there for James McCann. He's batting barely above 200. And when he wants to hit for power, he does. I mean, he'll hit you a home run maybe once.
He ran into one today.
He'll hit you a home run maybe once every 20. Yeah, maybe one home run every 20, 25 games. But, with the lineup that we already have and the offense seemed to come around. I mean, you scored 9 runs yesterday. The first game, I think you won, 2-1, and then you win 4-3. So, I mean, the offense kind of peaked a little bit in this series, but now you got a team like Houston coming in. They're off tomorrow, travel day back home, and you got Houston, who's also a team that's really been hot lately.
Very.
A lot of good pitching. Their offense, I think it's really been their pitching that's kind of like gotten them where they've been.
Well, their pitching's improved, but their offense is led by Jose Altuve, who, in my eyes, is the MVP right now. He's just absolutely tearing the power off
of Major League Baseball?
Yep. He is just absolutely a fantastic talent. Plays second base, best second baseman in baseball.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an intriguing series, and the Tigers are going to see McHugh, Fires, and Keuchel.
And Dallas Keuchel, I think, is a guy that, he's probably like one of your aces on this team, isn't he?
Dallas Keuchel is their ace.
He is their ace. Yeah.
And yes, the Tigers did get to him earlier on in the season when he was struggling. But
the whole team was struggling.
But the whole team was struggling.
Yes.
Correa was struggling. Altuve was still hitting, but he wasn't clicking on all cylinders. Now the Astros are they're right behind the Texas Rangers.
3 games out.
They're coming all cylinders. If they add another piece to the puzzle, they could be a very dark horse team to make a deep run. Very young, talented team led by Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa. They're a team that this is a big series coming up for the Tigers. Huge series. And unfortunately, Tigers are going to throw Matt Boyd in Game 1, Justin Verlander in Game 2, and Mike Pelfrey in Game 3. So it's kind of unfortunate the way the pitching lines.
I think it kind of like meets in the middle because you're at home where you've been successful all year round. You got an offense that I think on paper is slightly better than Houston. The pitching's probably going to outdo you, other than Verlander. But I mean, if you can take 2 out of 3 against Houston, I mean, I think it's expected. But at the same time, Houston is actually.
I don't say it's expected.
You don't think it's expected?
I do not think the Tigers going back home are expected to win that series. I think the Tigers need to be competitive.
Do you feel like that they
need to not get swept? But I think Houston will win the series against the Tigers.
Well, Houston right now is on the verge of being swept themselves by the New York Yankees. They've lost a couple close games, 2-1, 6-3 against the Yankees. They're playing right now, currently 0-0 game just started in Houston. So if they end up getting swept tonight themselves, I mean, they're going to be coming into Comerica with that day off. They're going to be playing very, very pissed off. So, I mean, you got a team right now on one end that's riding a high like the Tigers, and then you got a team like Houston that could be potentially swept by the Yankees. And I mean, right now, getting into the dog days of summer, you don't want to be getting swept in any series.
Not by these bottom feeder teams.
Yeah, especially when the West is so tight.
The Yankees
right now
are starting to just fire sale. Chapman went to the Cubs.
Yeah.
I think Miller's going to end up heading somewhere. I think that they're going to try to hold on to Dylan Betances. And I'm not sure about like Mark Teixeira, Carlos Beltran, Jacoby Ellsbury. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to trade those old veteran big contracts that they have, but I'm sure the Yankees are going to try to get younger. And they have some very ailing veterans with huge contracts.
This is a team.
Alex Rodriguez is probably a guy that they'd love to trade, but I don't think no one would take his big contract and also
he's going to retire a Yankee.
Issues.
Unfortunately, he'll retire a Yankee. I mean, really, this is a guy that's coming up on 700 career home runs, and I mean, right now, the Yankees want that publicity. So I mean, because nobody's probably going to take that monster contract of his, he'll probably play because he's already, I think, 40, right? He's 40, going to be 41. He's got to only have one more year left. I think once he passes 700 home runs, I think he's going to call it in because he's not catching Barry Bonds. He won't catch Hank Aaron either. So, I mean, in my opinion, one more year for A-Rod.
Depending on health, depending on what his situation is, how he's feeling, I think will be the determining factor.
He's DHing now, though, isn't he?
He is DHing.
Yeah,
he's pretty much limited to DH.
No
He ain't playing third base. But the Yankees are kind of a team that's kind of falling apart right now.
But they're on the flip side, they're not completely out of the playoff race.
They're not. But
the AL East is so wide open.
They're selling. Obviously, if they thought that they had a legitimate opportunity, Chapman would not be in a Chicago Cubs uniform.
Yeah.
And they got a haul from the Cubs for Chapman. So the Yankees got some great prospects, got some good looking talent. They didn't get Kyle Schwarber, which if I know he's hurt and he's out for the year, but if I was the Yankees, I would not.
Well, didn't they get that McKinney guy?
Yeah.
Bobby McKinney?
But I would not have made that deal with the Cubs unless I was able to get Schwarber.
Yeah.
Even though Schwarber is done for this year and he's got a long way back, I would definitely say, hey, you're going to throw in Schwarber.
Right.
But the Cubs aren't going to want to part ways with Schwarber.
Yeah,
If they did, that deal was pretty crazy because Chapman, I don't believe, has much left on his contract. I do believe he might be a free agent another year or so. I'm not positive on the Chapman contract, but I don't see him staying with the Cubs either.
No, I mean, he's kind of here for a cup of coffee, isn't he? I mean,
he is in Chicago for a short time.
I think really they brought him in here to make their World Series chances.
He is going to solidify that stamp that
the
Cubs are for real.
Yes.
They have a legitimate shot at a World Series to end that whole curse. Jake Arrieta's been fantastic as always, but the other rotation, as you know, John Lackey's had his ups and downs. John Lester is a very good pitcher, but in the playoffs, he crumbles. As you've seen when he was with Boston Red Sox, the Tigers just lit him up.
Yeah.
The Tigers had his number. So, luckily for him, he's not going to face Detroit unless it's the World Series, and the Tigers happen to get in there. But the Cubs have a lot of other obstacles. I think the Cubs have that big upside in the first half, and they were running away with the whole Major League Baseball, and now they realize, okay, we're going to need some bullpen help, and they went out and got Chapman, but sometimes you can't exactly buy a World Series ring. You can't.
And the Tigers have been proven, about that. And
that's highly proven. Look at the Yankees teams of the past and look at the Tigers teams.
Along with John Lester, you got a struggling John Lackey, whom I know is struggling because, his last 3 starts have been horrible for my fantasy team. And this is a guy that started off great. Currently right now he's 7-7. This was a guy that just a couple weeks ago was like 7-3 and was just doing remarkable things. But he has now lost his last 4 in a row. So, that could be cause for concern. I mean, because, you had some of the top pitching just a couple months ago, and now when
obviously,
you look at
you have a very good lineup. You have Dexter Fowler, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Ben Zobrist, who's starting to cool off a little bit, but they have a very good 1 through 5, 1 through 6.
You can't rely just on Jake Arrieta to carry this team.
No, you can't.
I mean, Jason Hamill has been a surprise too for this team. Very much so. I mean, a guy that was just a couple years ago a 3rd or 4th starter at best. I mean, he's shown his worth for this team. So, from what I've seen, especially when he was kind of struggling, those years he was playing with Baltimore, he was all right.
Seems like when you leave Baltimore, you turn to stars.
Yeah, you do.
Jake Arrieta. Look at that.
Look at that exactly. But with Lackey and Lester, that's a little bit of cause for concern if I'm them. But at the same time, I think
that team's run by the best manager in baseball. Joe Madden is the best manager in baseball. He keeps things very relaxed, very light.
And the best general manager, Theo Epstein.
I think they're in good shape. I don't know if this is the year of the Cubs, but they're a team to be.
They made it very, very clear
of.
last year that once Theo Epstein had a couple years under his belt to turn this team around to get all the pieces in place, this is a team that's going to be scary. I'm not going to say that they're going to be the next Yankees or Boston Red Sox that are around for year after year. The Tigers, they made that proven that they were around for about 5-6 years, and then they kind of came back to reality. Once your team starts getting older and guys start, losing a little bit of production, you got to come back to earth sometimes. But the Cubs right now being the young team.
That window closes. The Cubs window is right now.
And with the Cubs, they have a young team right now. So, I mean, right now you got to look ahead, and their biggest, I guess you could say their biggest competition in the NL right now are the 2 other teams that are leading their respective divisions, and that's Washington and San Francisco. Now, I said to you the other day that once they made this deal for Chapman, I think that they're well capable of beating Washington. We've seen Washington choke in the playoffs many times before. But it is an even year, which usually means
the Giants year.
Yep. We've seen it 2010, 2012. So with the Giants, I think it's their time. I mean,
very well could be.
I think right now, if you were to make an early World Series prediction, I mean, you could say Giants and Orioles right now, but, I don't know. I mean, you still got the Blue Jays, the Red Sox aren't even out of it. Don't even really start getting worried. They got swept today, big deal.
The American League is wide open.
It is.
Wide open.
You could say the Cleveland Indians could go to the World Series. I mean, I still say this team is going to tail off in August. I really hope that's the case. They are 4-6 their last 10. They haven't been as hot as they have been lately. The hottest team in the Central lately, their past 10 has been the Tigers. They're 6-4.
Well, the Cleveland Indians ran into Steven Strasburg.
They did.
So
they did.
There's
Once
that.
You start playing interleague play, that's, I think, going to either be something positive for you or negative. And when you hit a guy like Strasburg, then you're in trouble. But, and the same thing with the West. I mean, right now, you still got 3 teams. The Mariners, they are not out of it by any means, and the Astros and the Rangers. So, the American League is crazy competitive right now, and the National League, really, I've got it narrowed down to my 3 teams. So, and I think the West, as the West has always been up against between the Giants and the Dodgers, losing Clayton Kershaw for pretty much the end of the year. I think the Dodgers, they're still doing well without him. I mean, yeah, they're 5-5 their last 10. The Giants are 2-8. So the Dodgers are creeping back up. They were just about a week ago 4.5 games out. They're now 2.5. So they're staying right on the heels of the Giants, and I think that that's going to be a division that's going to be up for grabs up until the last day of the season. So
without Kershaw, that team is just
the leadership of Kershaw.
It's not just the leadership; it's just the poise and the moxie that Kershaw brings into that clubhouse when he takes the ball every 5th day.
Oh yeah,
Kershaw's just elite. And I did happen to catch a little bit of the Dodgers game after the Tigers game today. Just hearing Vince Scully call a game, because I believe it's Vince Scully's final season.
It is.
In the broadcasting booth.
50 years.
Talk about a legend.
Dude.
Just,
and honestly, for his
voice
age.
and the way he carries himself, and he's the only man in the whole broadcasting booth. Doesn't have a partner. Phenomenal. Just absolutely.
Never loses a step.
Music to your ears. It's just brilliant. The way he calls a game, it's just so entertaining. Even if you're not a Dodgers fan,
that's what I'm saying.
You kind of become one.
I mean, we were spoiled with as Tiger fans having Ernie Harwell call games for 30 years, for the Tigers organization. And then when he retired, he went a long way, but not as long as Vince Scully. Vince Scully's been around for like 4 decades. So, you have Ernie Harwell, which is a legend in his own right, and then you have Vin Scully, and Vin, I mean, I can listen to a game. I mean, that guy can relax you.
Yeah, he does.
He doesn't put you to sleep like in a bad way, but I mean,
Ross of baseball.
Yes, the Bob Ross of baseball. That's like probably the perfect way to describe it. His voice and being in his 80s and not being able to lose a step.
He's a Hall of Famer already.
Yes.
Speaking of Hall of Famers,
still has a full head of hair too. So anyway, speaking of the Hall of Fame, just two lucky individuals going to Cooperstown. Usually, we get about 4, maybe 5 guys that go.
You get a couple.
You get a handful.
Yeah.
But this year, just a select 2, and that was Ken Griffey Jr. and Mike Piazza, and 2 well-deserving guys. I know that Ken Griffey, obviously, 630 career home runs.
13-time All-Star.
13-time All-Star.
10-time AL Gold
I know
Glove
you're
winner.
going to roll this down.
97 MVP. Griffey is just...
He's your hero. He was your Jeff Gordon.
He was. Yeah.
Sorry.
Jeff Gordon.
Shut up.
But Ken Griffey Jr. for me is just that guy.
The all-around baseball player.
The all-around baseball player, the cool guy that you'd like to hang out with as a celebrity.
And talked very well.
He was. He's emotional ceremony speech that he gave the other day.
Put the backwards hat on.
Did it at the final. That was just the final
salute.
Junior salute.
Yep.
And then Mike Piazza. Obviously, most famous for his home run after 9/11.
Yep, the September 21st bomb that he had, and that was great for the city of New York. Now, Mike Piazza,
Clemens situation.
Yes. Now, outside of Griffey, obviously we had mentioned before that he had never been accused of taking steroids throughout his career. Mike Piazza, I believe, was accused at one point.
I believe that
there was a little bit of a scandal.
He was linked to a scandal. I'm not sure. I don't believe he was proven to be guilty.
No.
You can look that up, but I know Clemens was heavily involved, and I know that whole situation with Piazza and Clemens was really drawn out well. And I know for one, there's been so many guys linked to PEDs and enhancement drugs that I'm almost to the point now where it's just like, I'm just going to say, okay, if you're on it, you're on it. It's your health. It's your problem.
This coming from a 2013 article on MetsToday.com, Mike Piazza actually, when he released his autobiography, he includes that he did use PEDs back in the day briefly.
He just was inducted in the Hall of Fame last Sunday.
So
what does that tell you?
Androstenedione. He used it in 2002.
Now, does that weigh your opinion on him at all?
Well, it was legal to purchase back then over the counter. It was okay to use according to MLB's lack of PEDs policy. That was back in the day.
Because now things are a lot stricter than they were
I
probably
think
in
the guy that
2002.
set that standard was Barry Bonds in 2007. And we had mentioned this earlier, now that you get guys like Griffey and Piazza in the Hall of Fame, do the 2 big names of the late 90s in Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, do they belong in the Hall of Fame? I will say Barry Bonds, no. Roger Clemens, yes.
Why Roger Clemens, yes. Why Barry, no. I'll give you mine in a second, but
I feel like
I want to get your perspective on this.
Because I feel like with pitching, I mean, PEDs, they will add a certain element to your velocity. Obviously, it makes you stronger. But I feel like the control that Roger Clemens had back in the day, like he had control with his pitches and the location, the movement was just right. He was just a dominant guy, and I just feel like even if he was taking steroids, I just don't think it would really affect him that much to the point of making the statistics that much more scattered. Barry Bonds being a hitter, a home run hitter, yeah, even without steroids, Barry Bonds would have probably hit over 600 home runs. But
I'm not going to defend Barry Bonds, but in a way of a defense, you still got to hit that ball going 90 plus miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And steroids, I'm sorry, is not going to help you hit that ball.
Your reaction time will not be affected by steroids.
Because I guarantee you, if I took steroids for a month and I went out there and played softball, it wouldn't make me hit a ball 350 feet.
No.
I'd hit the ball the same amount. You still got to be able to judge it. You still got to be able to time the ball correctly. I don't believe steroids is going to enhance that judgment.
In reality, you look at it from a perspective of, well, Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame because he bet on baseball.
Yeah.
And that's garbage. So, it's like if he's not in there, then they don't belong in there. That's my opinion. I feel like Pete Rose deserves to be in it based off of his own. He was a fair guy. He was never accused of taking steroids or PEDs. He bet on baseball, which obviously was a crime back in the day. So, but God, he's had 25 years to think about it and wallow in. And you get guys that obviously could not play the game the correct way without using any enhancers. And, why should we induct them into the Hall of Fame if Pete Rose can't get in?
It's a very good perspective, and it's going to be a big concern, I think, in coming years.
Oh, yeah.
And then also when Alex Rodriguez does hang it up, if they're going to put him in the Hall. Because the numbers obviously are definitely Hall of Fame caliber numbers. If there's no question Alex Rodriguez will be going to the Hall of Fame, but will people vote for him because of his allegations, because of his use?
Alex Rodriguez is another guy. God, how many times have we seen him get booed out of Yankee Stadium? Once he stopped taking steroids, look at how his numbers declined. Just imagine if they would have never found out about it and he'd still be taking steroids to this day and wondering how the hell is a 40-year-old guy hitting 40 home runs?
It's remarkable, but I don't attest everything to steroids.
Yeah.
I believe they enhance you and make you perform better. But also I think a lot of those guys, it's so much of the everyday grind. It's 162 games.
That's the thing.
It's being able to get up every day knowing that you got to go to the ballpark early. You're going to be there late.
Yeah.
You got to play a game. You got to perform at the highest level possible. Guys are getting better and better, and you want to give yourself the best opportunity to be successful.
And to counter that, I feel like I agree in the fact that baseball is the most grinding sport there is. It's the most demanding because you do play 162 games a year, double headers multiple times. You play in so many different weather conditions. It's definitely it's a lot more strenuous than basketball, football, in my opinion. Even though football guys can debate me on that all day long, and hockey as well. But if you're going to go into playing the game of baseball with the mindset of taking enhancers or PEDs, steroids, whatever you're taking, to better your own statistics, to make yourself big and strong, and to actually get an advantage over the competition, then you're wrong. But if you're going to go in there and take PEDs or enhancers to just kind of clear your mind and kind of get yourself off, get your mind clear, that's something different. But unfortunately, you don't know the truth, what these guys are thinking. Did Barry Bonds willingly take steroids because he wanted to be the best, because he wanted to go out there and get a unfair advantage over everybody else? Probably.
And look at a guy like former Tiger Alex Sanchez, who was busted for steroids countless times. The guy probably has, I don't know, I don't have his stats in front of me, obviously, but Alex Sanchez was not a guy that's going to be a prolific home run hitter. He was a guy that stole tons of tons of bases.
He's a smaller guy.
Very small. Didn't have a lot of pop in the bat.
Well,
didn't have a very good career. So why was he taking steroids? Was he taking it for the fact of, I want to be as best as I can? Or was it maybe that, I'm going to try to be as competitive and try to get that competitive edge? I don't like cheating. So I personally would, if I was a baseball writer, I would never vote anyone in with that PED allegations. Is dominating as Barry Bonds was and as good as Alex Rodriguez was, and Roger Clemens, we all know how good Roger Clemens was. I just can't vote those guys in because I think that tarnishes the legacy of these top pitchers and these top hitters that are already in the Hall of Fame, the Babe Ruth, the Mickey Mantles, Ty Cobb, so on and so forth. Ty Cobb killed a person, but he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, yeah.
But there's so many instances that people don't know about these guys and that may never be known. You may never know about these guys. But if it's been proven, without a shadow of a doubt, I just can't
You can't vote with a clear conscience and say this guy deserves to be in here because this is supposed to be a game where everybody has the fair advantage. If you're organically more muscular or bigger or stronger than the rest of the competition, obviously you're going to get guys that could probably bench press other players. You know, like Miguel Cabrera could probably bench press a guy like Buster Posey over his head. I mean, you know, he's just that much bigger and stronger, but he's not been accused of taking steroids. You know, Miguel's a bigger guy. Obviously, I think a lot of jealousy from players that probably wanted to point the finger at him and say, oh, you know, he's juicing and whatnot, but he's never been proven to be. So I think Miguel Cabrera will go down in history, for example, as like another Ken Griffey Jr. He probably won't hit 600 home runs, but Miguel's a guy that is another
Miguel
first
Cabrera
ballot
does
Hall of Famer.
Have a dark past as well with drinking. He does have that alcohol problem. And it's unfortunate. I think I don't know if people will really take that into account.
Nobody's squeaky clean, though. Nobody
really
clean.
is.
No.
Ken Griffey Jr. almost committed suicide at a very young age, I do believe. The kid may never have happened. I don't know how old he was exactly, but I do remember recalling someone writing an article about it. And he almost committed suicide.
Yeah.
So there's that. So everybody has that
demon
inside them, or that big flaw. But the thing is if you cheated, you do not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. It's just there's a lot of guys who deserve to be there. Alan Trammell is one of them.
Right.
You know, there's so many guys, and that's just one. There's some guys coming up that are going to deserve to be in it that probably won't get in it. So it's a tough call. It's a really, really difficult decision that I'm glad personally that I don't have to make.
Yes.
Obviously, Ken Griffey Jr. set records. Everybody loved Ken.
Yeah, he went the extra mile. You know, he wanted to clear his name, wanted to make sure that he was clean, doing everything fairly. I appreciate that effort by him.
So you have future classes, and there's a big question. Since the Tigers played him today, I'll bring it up. DH. The best DH in history of the game. David Ortiz. Doesn't play a position, never played a position.
No.
Does he deserve to be?
Well, he played first base.
Very rarely. In NL ballparks and interleague games. Very rarely. Probably played a handful of games at first base his whole career. Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't discredit...
I mean, you got to have a spot for DH hitters.
But there are some people that have that mindset of you can't vote in a full-time DH because he hasn't done anything on the field. Like Ken Griffey Jr. is famous for his accolades, hitting 630 home runs, but also robbing home runs, stealing the show. He could run the bases until his hamstrings just completely went out in the 2000s.
He was center field?
Griffey, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great range out there, too. I mean, he could cover left, right, anywhere in the field. So I think it's even more really when you get – because I think outfield's probably next to shortstop, it's probably the hardest position to play in baseball. So, I mean, when you have an outfielder that can go in there and hit 600-plus home runs, you know, and just crush the ball, I think it's a lot more harder. I think it makes it a little bit more easier to get voted into the Hall of Fame. But for a DH – I mean, yeah, you're not going to get the same consideration as you would for a position player, but at the same token, it's offense. It's offense.
And David Ortiz is probably, in my time, in our time, I would say the biggest clutch hitter in baseball. Yeah. And probably will be
the best DH in history.
The best DH. Edgar Martinez was very good for the Seattle Mariners. David Ortiz takes the cake for me.
Yeah.
I believe that David Ortiz will go down in history as probably the greatest DH.
First ballot Hall of Famer?
Absolutely. Big
Papi. And just, I mean, and you got to look at not just from the aspect of him playing DH. I mean, forget the position, but just, the clutch hitting and bringing World Series titles to a lowly Boston team that had suffered before 2004 to come back against the Yankees. They were down 0-3 to come back and win that series.
We all know what he did in 2013, right?
Yeah, and the home run that sent Torrey Hunter over the wall and. Yeah, that was an ALCS to forget if you're a Tiger fan, but, you know, he's a clutch guy, and I respect David Ortiz. They had an interesting topic, and I guess I can bring it up on this show because I think that this is something that's pretty interesting to ask. What sports figure, baseball, hockey, I'll even go NASCAR because, I mean, I think mine might be NASCAR, baseball, hockey, racing, basketball, football. What athlete did you completely despise growing up, but you respect now? In your adulthood, what's a guy that you completely hated because maybe he beat the hell out of your home team all the time, or you just couldn't stand him when you were a kid? and now you respect, and now you appreciate?
Give me a minute here. I would say Derek Jeter.
They had a few guys call in when I was listening to Carson Anderson a few days ago. They did. A lot of people called in and said Derek Jeter. Had a lot of Michael Jordan calls. Michael Jordan was if you weren't a Bulls
talent.
Yeah, but if you weren't a Bulls fan, you were a Michael Jordan hater. Same with like Dennis Rodman. For me,
Tony Stewart.
I was going to say Tony Stewart or Dale Earnhardt. Well, not Dale Earnhardt Jr. because, I never really hated Dale Earnhardt Jr. because, Dale Jr. has never really stolen Jeff Gordon's thunder in any ways. Dale Earnhardt, obviously, it sucks you got to appreciate a guy more after he dies. But if I was to go NASCAR, I'd probably say Tony Stewart. I was never a big Tony Stewart fan. Him and Jeff had a few dust-ups back in the day. But if I were to go another sport, I would say Patrick Waugh. Patrick Waugh is a guy that, if you're a Red Wing fan, diehard Red Wing fan like Danny and myself, you hated Patrick. Patricia Waugh was one of the most hated players ever.
To be honest, I never hated Patrick Waugh.
Really?
I didn't even hate Claude Lemieux. I didn't like him.
See, you get along with Chris because Chris always liked Colorado, so he would never hate those guys.
I never liked Colorado, but I respected the talent that they had. The Adam Denmarsh, Joe Sakic, Adam Foote,
Peter Forsberg.
Those talented guys, I had a heck of a lot of respect for those guys.
The Red Wings, they would split too. Red Wings would get the best of them one year, and then Colorado would get the best.
It was just all around great for hockey in those years. But I never hated anyone. I didn't despise anyone. I didn't like Patrick Waugh. But the fact, I knew that he was going to be a Hall of Fame goaltender, and I knew how good that he was.
Even in his years with Montreal.
When the Wings were able to stick it to him, it was phenomenal. It was just like, stick it to Patrick Waugh.
See, I was a Patrick Waugh hater. Me and my dad, we both hated Waugh. Wah, crybaby wah. And the best moment as a Red Wing fan, if you're a Red Wing fan, everybody's going to remember this. 2002 Western Conference Final, Game 7. The 7-0 shelling of Patrick Waugh.
Yeah, that was exactly what I just mentioned.
Yes, and when they scored 6 goals against Patrick, they chased him after 2 periods. That was great. But after he retired, what made me kind of get some respect for him was when he did an interview with Chris Osgood. And they talked, obviously about their famous fight from '98 and, the Stanley Cup battles, the playoff battles they had. And I just, I kind of listened to him and I was like, this guy's not a bad guy. I respect him a lot more than I used to. So, Patrick Waugh for hockey, Tony Stewart for NASCAR, football. I don't know, man. I guess it's sacrilegious to say this, but I guess Brett Favre. Brett.
Jeez.
What?
I know someone that's not going to appreciate that.
Well,
but
Brett. Well, obviously, no matter how much the Lions sucked, and the Packers have always gotten the better of the Lions, Brett Favre was never a fan.
They're going to say
of yours,
else, like Randy Moss or Terrell Owens or something like
that.
No,
well, Randy Moss. I liked him when he played because he played that 1 year with the Patriots. Didn't quite get the job done. It was the season that got away. But no, I'd probably say Brett Favre for football. I respect him, more now. He was able to come out of retirement and play for 2 different teams and was still very successful. So Brett Favre for football, basketball. Oh boy, I would have to say probably. I'm going to agree. This is coming. I'm not trying to copy off of Karsh on this one, but Karsh had said the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the San Antonio Spurs, if you watch basketball back when it was the new bad boy era of the mid-2000s, when the Pistons were actually dominating, winning championships, the Spurs were always there to either knock us out or they were like always playing us hard. And the San Antonio Spurs were winning all the time. So back in them days, they were like our biggest competition. There was always the Spurs and the Pistons. Occasionally the Lakers would be in there too, but really, the Spurs were a team that you would just love to hate. But now you got Tim Duncan who just retired, and I respect the hell out of him. He played so long. He was a gentlemanly guy, and Ginobili and just Tony Parker. Mm-hmm. You appreciate that. You're almost rooting for this team now because you appreciate what they accomplished for like an entire decade with the exact same roster, and now all this time later they're still competing and they're still in the playoff race. So. Probably for basketball, I have to say the entire San Antonio Spurs team.
There's nobody that I can really say that this category defines for me. There's no one that really, for basketball or for football, that is really that for me. For hockey, it might be Patrick Waugh.
Hate's a strong word. I don't want to say that, but a guy that you love to hate, or a guy that you didn't necessarily hate, but you hated playing against. Or the Red Wings would play against back in the day. There's no other guy that stands out but Patrick Waugh. Claude Lemieux, I still don't like Claude Lemieux, so really I can't say him. But if I were to go to baseball, I'd probably agree with you, Derek Jeter. I mean, I was never a Jeter fan because he was a Yankee, and we all were taught to hate the Yankees. And I think Jeter was a guy because he was born here in Michigan, hometown boy.
He just was so cocky, you just want to smack him.
He was a cocky player.
So cocky, made all the plays.
But he was so squeaky clean. He was a guy that another guy never got really busted for steroids. Another guy that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and a guy like Jeter.
Now I respect the heck out of him.
Yeah,
he's just a phenomenal guy.
One of the best shortstops in Major League Baseball.
He made all these phenomenal catches that go down in Yankees history. He's probably one of the most prolific Yankees in history. He's just.
I mean, when you look at guys like when you compare him to a guy like Babe Ruth, I mean, I would say that he's right up there. I think he's like a top 3 Yankee. So. That would be my list. So, I mean, that's just kind of like a little extra question I wanted to throw out there. I thought it would be making for a good, interesting discussion. So,
cool.
Moving on. So, we got our baseball talk out of the way. The Red Wings made some signings over the last couple days. This is where I lose my head. Yeah, when you had texted me earlier and said that you were all fired up, was this what you were referring to, or was it the Tigers?
Ken Holland continues to prove my point. He's lost his touch. He is an idiot. And this team continues to fall down the toilet of mediocrity. Every single
And now you're worrying about a salary cap.
And now you're $4 million over the salary cap.
Now you're over. Now you got to get rid of guys.
Which, the Peter Mrazek signing is not my problem. That is probably his best signing all offseason.
Well, he had to avoid arbitration, but he had to sign him to a short-term deal because of the salary cap. He was already on the verge of going over. So if he had extra money.
I love the Peter Mrazek deal.
Because Peter Mrazek he did want $10 million. We gave him $8 million. We gave him $4 million a season, which I think he deserves. I said that a few days ago. Like, I would not give him more than $4 million. I feel like that's what he deserves.
He's not proven enough to get that kind of big bucks yet that Carey Price is
going to win a cup. Got to win a cup.
2 years is going to be able to tell you what Peter Mrazek is. Whether he is
Your
flash,
future?
if he's the flash in the pan, or he's the future, and he is something special. Now you got to count on. Now this is what the Wings are going to have to count on: Dylan Larkin, Andreas Athanasiou, Danny DeKeyser. They all have to turn into superstars because this team is going to be mediocre at best the next couple seasons.
Oh yeah,
this team is not going anywhere.
Frans Nielsen is not your answer. That's a 20, 25 goal scorer, maybe at best. He's not your replacement for Danny. I mean, you could say he's Pavelski's replacement, but really on paper, I don't think he will be. The Red Wings, speaking of the Red Wings, before we get into the DeKeyser talk, they released the preseason power rankings.
I did see this.
You want to know where the Red Wings are ranked?
Like 16th?
17th.
17th.
That would make them because I believe 16 teams make it in. No, Red Wings are on the outside looking in.
I believe THN, Hockey News, one of those.
THN or TSN?
TSN.
Yeah.
Or Hockey News or.
Yep.
One of those put that out there.
I don't like lists. First and foremost, I think I tagged you in that list where the Red Wings, the top 5 Red Wings or whatever. Steve Yzerman wasn't even included on the top 5. He was like ranked 49th. I was like, are you kidding me? Gordie Howe was ranked number 4, and then you put Steve Yzerman 49th. Like, how ridiculous is this list? And I just kind of shook my head and I was like, oh, this is not accurate. This isn't even like. It doesn't even make sense. Forget this list.
You gotta look at the publisher.
Yeah.
You gotta look at who does it. Because if it's some Joe Schmo that wrote it.
That has no idea about Red Wing
credibility
history.
whatsoever.
Yeah, they're not credible.
It's not a good source and not a good opinion to really base that has facts or any kind of value behind it. So I don't really look at a whole lot of stuff like that anyways.
But when you look at this next deal, obviously you got one positive. You got a Peter Mrazek deal that was signed for a decent amount of money. Then you look on the other side of the spectrum and you look at right now, currently, your number 1 defenseman. I'm not even thinking about Nicholas Kronwall.
He is. You paid him top defenseman money. So that is signaling that Ken Holland believes that Danny DeKeyser is your number 1 defenseman, and he is not. The Wings are riddled with third defensive pairings. Yep. That's the Wings are riddled with. And that is just atrocious. That Ken Holland continues to give out these big deals to these players like Darren Helm. Don't get me started on Darren Helm again. Ken Holland is losing his mind. The Wings are.
Well, we didn't even get to the deal yet. 6 years, $30 million. And we've been talking about this. Every deal. I mean, you got Frans Nielsen for 4? Was he 4 years?
5.
Or 5, yeah, that's right. 5 years.
That's why I've made that post.
Yes.
Everybody's getting 5-6 year deals. It's like Ken Holland's Oprah.
Why wouldn't you want to come?
Holland,
Yeah.
You get a 5-year deal.
You get a 6-year deal.
You're here for 6 years. Oh yeah.
Why would you not want it? Yeah.
You grew up here. We're going to give you a 5-year deal worth $30 million. Oh, I'm Oprah Winfrey all of a sudden. I'm Ken Holland.
Why? If you're all about the money, why wouldn't you want to come to the Red Wings when you got a GM that's just dishing out long-term contracts? I mean, you're going to be making about $10 million per season. I mean, why not come here? I mean, if you're all for winning a cup, yes. If you're a guy like if you're signing these, if you're signing these contracts, you're Ken Holland. You got to put a little asterisk and say, all right, I'm going to sign you to a 5-year deal worth $30 million, and then put in parentheses with the ability to win the cup in the next 5 years. So you'd have to probably wait until your last year here to win a cup or even have a chance to win a cup. This is a team right now, currently, that is probably 3 to 5 years off for competing for a cup. That's my opinion.
You're going to open that new arena. Bold prediction right here. Bold prediction. Here you go. Laying it out flat. Give you all a minute to drink it in, man.
Drink it in, man. The gift of
me.
The gift of Bartley.
Wings missed the playoffs this year. Streak over. Wings open up the new season. That is a bold prediction. That is my hot take of the night.
Wow.
Wings missed the playoffs.
So you're agreeing with this power ranking?
I'm agreeing with the power ranking because I think the Wings, when they went out there, as much as the big fish was Steven Stamkos, and I knew he wasn't coming here.
Yeah.
I believe the Wings, before they signed Nielsen, wasn't going to make the playoffs, even with Nielsen.
Well, when you couldn't, when you couldn't get Stamkos, if you would have had Stamkos, you probably would have been within a 1 to 2 year window of winning a cup. And now without Steven Stamkos, you're probably 3 to 5 years away.
With these signings, the Wings might just tread their way into the playoffs.
Eastern Conference Finals.
The Wings might just get their way in this year.
Eastern Conference Finals next year.
Okay, Derek.
Come on, Stevie Y. Come to Detroit, please. Just win your cup this year for Tampa Bay. Get it over with, because that's my pick to win the cup is Tampa Bay.
I did hear that last week.
Yes. And I also have I've been taking polls left and right. I'm picking Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was actually my pick this past year to win the cup, and they just came up a bit short. So this year, with the re-signing of players and getting this team all squared away, Steve Yzerman is not stopping. He's actually been probably a better GM than Ken Holland has been the last few years. And Steve Yzerman learned from the best. So that's
Steve Yzerman's his own.
Steve Yzerman learned a little bit from Ken Holland back when Ken Holland actually made valuable moves.
Ken Holland has run into a wall, and that wall right now is the fact that there's a salary cap, and the fact that he is so destined to sign these homegrown, talented players, these players that have that hometown flavor.
DeKeyser, Glendening, Larkin.
And it drives me absolutely bonkers that he rewards these guys for their loyalty to the organization and yada, yada, yada. It just drives me absolutely off the wall. And Ken Holland is driving this team down the toilet. This team they're going to open up next year in that new arena.
Beautiful.
It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be a great
And Holland wants to get his hands on that.
And they're going to sell it every night for those $200-$300
20,000 people
tickets. Sell those $15.
Cold beer here, $9.50 a cup.
Yeah, probably more like $15 a pop. And then there's going to be a mediocre talent on the ice. This is what I'm going to be doing every Red Wing game. And I don't see how, if you're a supporter of Ken Holland, how you're still on his bandwagon. How are you?
I jumped off a while back.
I want someone to tell me how you can say Ken Holland has made good decisions with this Red Wing organization in recent years.
In my opinion, no.
I want someone to defend him.
I can't even defend him. I throw my hands up right now. Hands up, don't shoot, because right now his last relevant move was 2009, and that's it. Marian Hossa was his last relevant move. That's all. I mean, that's sad. Almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, goodness gracious.
Good God Almighty! I mean, really, it all started. What set the tone was the Johan Franzen monster contract. What, 8 years?
And that's a contract that
an 8-year, 7-year deal.
You got to find a way to get out of that.
Can't. He ain't playing this year.
He's not playing.
Johan Franzen is like one hit away from being a vegetable. My God.
No, that's Ken Holland's big flaw right there. These big contracts. It's going to continue to bite you because he gives these players such big deals, as I've said countless times. And it's so frustrating. That the fact that this fan base still believes that this team is going to be that Dylan Larkin,
Anthony
Ciu is not even proven enough to really.
No, I don't want him to be a flash in the pan. But what we saw from last year was very intriguing from Anthony Ciu with the ice time he was given, very minimal. And now this year, you can't really give him much more ice time because. You signed Thomas Vanek. You got Franz Nielsen, who's going to be probably playing on the first or second line.
You're hoping Thomas Vanek can.
I think Vanek is going to be that blessing in disguise, like that. I think,
or he gets hurt early on and misses 62 games.
I think he'll come on here as like a Brad Richards that kind of will, because Brad Richards very underachieved what he did in his only year with the Red Wings. So I think that Thomas Vanek, he's a lot more proven goal scorer than Brad Richards.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that he
in his
will.
Past.
Yeah, and I mean, even though it's in his past, I think he still has a little bit left in the tank. And I think that Thomas Vanek can be a 20-goal scorer and provide a little bit extra offense and depth for this team and veteran leadership. I mean, he's been there before. He's made the playoffs countless times back in his Buffalo years. So, I mean, I think Thomas Vanek for me could be like that guy in the shadows, that blessing in disguise that, hey, I mean, and for the money we paid, it's only a 1-year deal, right?
I believe so. He has to be that guy that is able to get some of the pressure off Dylan Larkin's back because Dylan Larkin is going to be that guy that everybody's counting on to be that prolific goal scorer this year. If Dylan Larkin's ice cold, the Wings are going to be cold. If Peter Mrazek has a bad game, the Wings are going to lose because the defensive core that the Wings have is terrible, and there's no help in sight.
Nope.
You're locking guys up left and right.
You think any trades are going to be moved before the season starts?
You're going to have to do some sort of move.
You have to because you're $4 million over.
$4 million over the salary cap.
You have to knock down a few guys here.
So you're going to have to make some moves, and I'm interested to see what other dumb decision Ken Holland's going to pull.
Hey, Jonathan Ericsson, what's up?
You going to buy Jonathan Ericsson out?
Wish. It would suck to have to
Jonathan
do it.
Ericsson.
I'd love to just move his ass, but nobody wants his contract.
The pylon of Jonathan Ericsson?
Yeah. Just a moving chicane, if you call him that.
The biggest fear I see for Danny DeKeyser is that he turns into Jonathan Ericsson.
Yeah.
Now, he's got a lot more skills.
He's tough.
Offensive ability. He's got a lot more talent than Jonathan Ericsson has. He can skate.
Mm-hmm. A lot less turnovers.
So I'm hoping that the window of opportunity, now that he knows that he is going to be a Detroit Red Wing for the majority of his career and maybe possibly his whole career, you never know what could happen, that he turns into and this is being optimistic because I know I've been such a hater on this Detroit Red Wings talk here, that he turns into this solid second pairing defensive core.
He's got the potential.
I don't believe that he can be a top defenseman. I don't believe that he can be on
the style that the Red Wings play on the D-line.
The way the Wings play, he probably will be on the number one pairing because you paid him to be a number one pairing. So why not put him on there?
So he'll be up there with Kronwall, the very, very fragile and very timid Nick Kronwall.
Kronwall is not on the number one. Kronwall and Eriksson will be probably second or third.
Who's number one with DeKeyser?
Probably Green.
Oh yeah, Mike Green.
A lot of people forget about Mike Green because I know I have as well.
He had a decent year.
Mike Green's possibly solid second line pairing as far as NHL standards are concerned.
On the power play too.
Has a good shot.
Yeah, he does.
But he's
no Nick Lindstrom as far as his point shot, but I mean, I think
his best years were with Washington Capitals.
Yeah, of course they were.
And Washington had such a good team for some of those years. And
they had a great power play.
And he was playing with a lot of other good defensemen as well. Yes. So where he comes over to Detroit, he's kind of got to be the leader. The Wings have that defensive core that's big and a lot of pylons out there and guys that can't move. Nicholas Kronwall's one move away from end of his career. Jonathan Ericsson's just a pylon.
Right.
Danny DeKeyser just got paid like a number one defenseman. Is he a number one defenseman? Absolutely not. So he's going to be trying to probably Danny DeKeyser's going to see that big contract this year and he's going to flop.
Right.
Because he's going to start trying to overperform, and he's not going to be able to get the job done. That's the biggest concern with that contract. And if you want numbers about big contracts of players in Detroit that are not performing up to their standards, just look at Justin Upton.
Yeah.
Give him a big deal. What's he doing?
8 a.m. class.
So there you have it. That is my biggest concern with Danny DeKeyser, is that he tries to go in there next season. He knows he got this big $30 million deal. He knows he's locked up. He's going to try to overdo things. He's going to try to overdo what he's capable of. He's got some skills, He has to develop more as a player.
Right.
And yes, he's not going to turn into that number one defenseman. The ceiling is higher than what he is right now. I believe that he can be good, not great. He's not going to be the next PK Subban, Erik Karlsson.
Nick Lindstrom.
No, he's not going to be the great number 5 that we all love and miss here dearly. Those days are over. Rafalski and Lindstrom, forget it. Gone.
Matthew Schneider?
Oh, goodness.
I like Matthew Schneider. He was all right.
Well, Matthew Schneider was better than anybody that the Wings have right now. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, Matthew Schneider, what are you doing
these
days?
Think about back then how great the defensive core was for the Red Wings, that Matthew Schneider was like an afterthought compared to who we had on that team. You know?
Oh, it makes me cough.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom how the Wings used to be. And how, yes, the salary cap is really
top 3 defensive teams in the league. Yeah.
Now the Wings are the bottom feeders for defense.
And bottom feeders on the power play and penalty kill. I mean, their power play 2 years ago was top 5, but now they've just completely suffered because they've lost a point shot. They have nobody that can score a shot. I mean, Mike Green, I think he scored the majority of his goals this past season on the power play. I think he had like 4 or 5 power play goals, but I mean, you got to have more than 1 point shot.
So am I just being too much of a grouch in saying the fact that the Wings are going to miss the playoffs? Because
no, it's realistic.
I see teams improving mightily, taking big steps forward in that Eastern Conference.
Teams like that didn't even make the playoffs last year. Teams like Ottawa. You see Ottawa making the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Montreal.
Carey Price.
So there's 2 teams that missed the playoffs this past year that will make the playoffs in 2016-17.
I think the Wings are going to be fighting tooth and nail to get in.
That last spot.
The Wings might be able to slip in. Might be able to get ahead of New Jersey.
Might be able to get like a hot streak there, unlike last year or this past year where they backed their way in.
The Wings are going to have to get some goal scoring this year.
Yeah.
Thomas Vanek, Nielsen.
Looking at it from an offensive standpoint, this is a team that struggled mightily to score goals last year. We can talk about the defense, the struggling of goalies between Peter Mrazek and Jimmy Howard, the flip back and forth experiment. You know, of course, there were times when Howard got hot and he would start, then he'd get cold. Mrazek came in, as well as injuries. Mrazek was hurt too. So, but out of all that, you know, offense mightily will win you games. So with the offense. This year now, I think with adding the depth of Thomas Vanek, even with, Franz Nielsen and a full year of Andreas Anthony, I think that our offensive depth will improve. I think we will score more goals this year than we did last year. We should.
But here's the big decision, is what's going to happen with that $4 million?
Yeah.
What's Ken Holland
Who's going? Who's going to leave? Because somebody has to, either we got to trade or you
got to restructure someone's pay.
Yeah. Because this is where you can find out too if you have selfish players, because you could defer some money. Guys could defer some money on their contracts to make the salary cap work.
You can buy out someone. Someone could possibly be gone.
There's only one guy that you can. I mean, really, and
you can try to get out of the Franzen deal.
And aren't we still paying on Stephen Weiss's contract?
Yes.
We're still paying him. Mm-hmm. He's gone, and Johan Franzen, who's out with injuries. Mm-hmm. And then, are we still paying Dan Cleary? I know it wasn't much, but I think he was getting paid $1 million, wasn't he?
Dan Cleary's done, but Dan Cleary did say that he does want to play this year.
No.
The Red Wings have not signed him as of yet.
No, but he wants to play in Grand Rapids just so he can latch on to whatever kind of Detroit memories he has. He wants to stay in this organization for God knows why. He's 37 years old and he just wants to hang on to whatever memories of his past he can by staying with the. Why you would want to beg to stay on the Grand Rapids Griffins is beyond me, but more power to you, Dan Cleary. God, you're a bum.
I believe that he is not going to be a Detroit Red Wing.
No.
Or a Grand Rapids Griffin, for that matter.
Get out of here. Just retire. You have nothing left to prove.
Someone
left
will pick them up, put them in their farm system, call them up when they
lose somebody.
Someone gets hurt.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's the Red Wing talk. We're going to conclude. Well, we won't conclude with this because we have a little bit of time. It's actually only 9:00. We've really breezed through the show. I thought it would be a little bit longer, but
got plenty of time. I got lots of stuff floating around. Oh yeah.
About
everything.
Wrestling.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, before we talk wrestling, we'll do a brief little segment here on the Lions. The big news out of Detroit, the Lions are very, very close to signing veteran wide receiver Anquan Boldin, formerly played for the Ravens, Arizona, and San Francisco. Last year, he caught 69 passes for 789 yards, 4 touchdowns with the 49ers last season. Obviously, on the cusp of losing Calvin Johnson, this is going to be needing some much needed depth at the wide receiver position. I feel like this is going to help them if they can finalize this deal. For 1 year. I mean, you're stealing this guy, really. It's a 1 year deal, very, very low risk if you're the Lions. And the only thing for me is that, he'll be 36 in October. Injuries can be a factor, but this is a guy that's huge. I mean, he's 6'4", 250 pounds. He is a big son of a gun, and he's tough too. This is a guy that has been to the big dance before. He's played with Jim Caldwell before when he was with the Ravens. Caldwell was the quarterback's coach back then and the offensive coordinator for Baltimore. That was when they won Super Bowl 47. And, I mean, I think Boldin has a little bit of them ties. I think he feels comfortable coming over here to Detroit. And
he's not officially signed, though.
No, he's not.
He's not officially a Detroit Lion as of yet. They have not officially announced it. The NFL has announced it. The whole transaction media has not announced yet that he is a Detroit Lion as of today.
Oh, I know. I know. It's like, as I said, it's a pending signing. But even if he were to get signed, he will likely be competing for a roster spot behind guys like Marvin Jones, Golden Tate. Now, Marvin Jones was the signing that we got to replace Calvin Johnson, but he'll also be in a group with guys like T.J. Jones, Jeremy Curley, Corey Fuller, Andre Caldwell. So I think he'll beat out Jones. I think that's going to be his main competition for that roster spot. But that'll be a big time. That'll be a lot of depth, I think.
With Calvin Johnson retiring, obviously Matthew Stafford's go-to number one receiver, you got to have a guy that has a proven track record. So you bring in Boldin, who has good past experiences. I like the signing. Boldin is a name that you got for a reasonable
it's synonymous.
price.
Yeah. His best years, obviously, probably with Baltimore and the Saints. So, he's been good.
You need to add some receivers. You need to give Matthew Stafford the biggest opportunity for success because, in my book, this is Matthew Stafford's year. If he does not go out this year and perform.
Now that you have some depth,
he lost Calvin Johnson. But yes, he's got a lot more depth at wide receiver.
Tate and Jones.
He seems to be getting a lot more help around the whole football field. There has to be that time, and it's got to be now. He has so many seasons under his belt now of just mediocrity, and what is he going to bring to the table every year? And he seems to just fall short of expectations.
Right.
And you're paying this guy big money. And he's not able to bring you to that big dance. He's not able to get you over that hump. And I don't believe Matthew Stafford is that guy. Just like I don't believe Jimmy Howard is the guy for Detroit Red Wings that can carry you and get you to that crystal ball and get you to the promised land of where you want to be.
And this is really Matthew Stafford's time to shine. I mean, he is in his – you can't say he's past his prime. The guy's only been in the league for 5 or 6 years. This is the years where Matthew Stafford is supposed to be in his prime. His better years – in my opinion, I don't think are behind him.
They should be. But
no, he had that one great year in 2011 where we made the playoffs. He threw for 42 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards. So Stafford's a guy that can always he will always give you a boatload of yards. He'll throw you.
Yeah, when he's throwing to Calvin Johnson. Now that Calvin Johnson's retired,
even
a whole nother story.
Even this past season when he had Golden Tate to kind of be a little bit more of a decoy, and this past year Calvin in his last season, it wasn't like your typical Calvin Johnson season. He didn't go out there and he didn't, catch a boatload of yards, or a boatload of touchdowns. He was a decoy for most of the time. But still, when you
think Calvin Johnson was healthy all year either.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. Calvin Johnson probably hasn't been healthy for the last couple seasons he's been in Detroit. But with Calvin now gone, and you have a little bit more depth now, you have 3 solid guys, or could be 3 guys if you get Boldin signed. That will cue your depth at the wide receiver front spot, and you have a lot of different targets. A lot of open field that you can throw to, and I think that this is going to be the true test for Matthew Stafford and this offensive line that also improved in the offseason. So, the preseason rankings had them going 5-11 this year. I think that's a little bit steep. I think that's harsh. I think this team is at least a 500 team. I think they're probably going to go 9-7. I'll say 9-7 every year. I think for the past 3 or 4 years, I've said the Lions were going to go 7-9, 8-8. 9-7. I don't think I've ever done better than that. But I'm going to go 9-7 this year.
Not thinking they can win that 10th game.
No.
Even though they kind of have a little bit of an easier schedule?
Schedule's favorable towards them this year. On paper, they could probably win 10 to 11 games, but they're the Lions. And,
they seem to just disappoint you.
You got to go in. You got to go into every season.
In.
I mean, dude, look at 2011. I think I had them going 8-8. They went 10-6. So, when you're a Lions fan, you go in there with low expectations. You rather be surprised than let down. So, I mean, I'll go in there with low expectations and hopefully they surprise us. But it's going to be another solid division. You know, you got Minnesota that never seems to go away, but it's going to be Green Bay probably winning the division again. So you're going to be second tier to them, or you're going to just fall apart altogether. So good luck for the Lions. That's about all I got for them.
I want to stay on the football seg for a second. College. I know college football is right around the corner.
Michigan.
And Michigan Wolverines, I know Jesus Harbaugh's doing his thing.
They are highly picked to win the national title
and that
this
is
year.
what I wanted to bring into question
Yes.
is how good are the Michigan Wolverines? They lost Rudock, obviously he's in the Lions organization. And Bud is back. Jake Bud is back. Back. I promise I can speak. But Bud is back. Ha ha ha. Rudock is gone, so the quarterback position is wide open according to Harbaugh. With Michigan's schedule, I'm sure you might be pulling that up right now.
Yeah, keep talking.
But how good can Michigan really be? A lot of experts are picking Michigan to run the table this year. Michigan go ahead and win out. Now that seems like a little bit of high expectations, and they're expected to be probably one of the number one teams around the country. With Harbaugh getting another year under his belt, with this team continuing to develop talent, Peppers, so on and so forth. They have a lot of talent there. Quarterback position still kind of up for grabs. Now you got the schedule in front of you.
Well, actually, before I get to the schedule, I want to talk about the quarterback debacle. There's three names that are right now in line, and I knew one of them. Yeah, Sugar Shane Morris, but you know he's a lefty. He's in the race, but you got the two other guys in Wilton Spite and John O'Korn that are also going to be giving him a run for his money. Now, right now, Wilton Spite is the penciled-in selection for quarterback, but Shane Morris, he's still in the race. So
Shane Morris seems like he's had his opportunity the past couple years.
Yeah,
it feels like that to me. It's not, but he seems like he's been around for a while, and he seems like he hasn't quite taken his opportunity and ran with it.
Now you got a guy like Spite who's going to be going in here as a junior. Now he went from a third string to a backup spot in 2015 last year. So.
And who was he with before Michigan?
Spite? Mm-hmm. I don't know if he. I thought he was always with Michigan. I don't know if he came over. I think he's always been here. So he was a third string before. So.
Wow.
Now you got O'Korn. He's a powerful arm. He's got a willingness to run. So Michigan has always been really. I mean, obviously
O'Korn?
O'Korn. Our last scrambling quarterback that we had was one Denard Robinson. Who turned out to be a wide receiver.
You know what he's doing these days? Getting in trouble.
Yeah, driving his car into ponds, falling asleep at the wheel.
Or is he playing Pokemon Go?
Or playing Pokemon Go, one or the other. But that was probably our last scrambling quarterback, and really he was good. I mean, he became a running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Alrighty.
Whoa.
Mic drop here for Derek.
That was a close one. If you guys heard that one, I accidentally nudged the mic there a little bit, but. Hopefully no damage is done. So camp starts on August 8th. So we got about a week or so before camp starts, and Harbaugh's got to decide on who he's rolling with. I mean, you could go the backup role. You can go. You could split the duties. It hasn't been done before in a long time, but with this recruiting class, I mean, it's a team that's going in there winning possibly 10 to 11 games.
High expectations.
Very high. It's been a long time.
You don't have a solidified quarterback going in. So now that might not be a big concern for many, but for me, I think that's a big question. I'd like to go into a season, any professional sport, knowing who your ace is, knowing who your quarterback is, knowing who this is, knowing who that is, knowing who's your starter is. I just like going into a season with that factor of expectations, and then you can adjust. If one guy doesn't perform up to his standards or what you expect him to perform up to, you yank him. You're any of these guys, three guys,
very short
leash for Harbaugh. I think you have a bad game, you might not see yourself starting next week.
Right.
You might find yourself sitting on the pine. So it's just depending on how Harbaugh's leash is with these guys, who might have more of the pull. It might be Morris. You don't know.
Now, on one end, you got a solid offense, but at the same time, you got a defensive core that is completely stacked with talent. And they're going to be pressured. Opposing quarterbacks are going to be pressured constantly by this defensive line. So they have a stout secondary led by their defensive coach. What's his name? Sorry, let me look him up here. I just saw him. Who the hell is he? Lewis. Yeah, he is one of their coach. Yeah, he's their defensive coordinator coach. Now you got another defensive coordinator like Don Brown. They're going to be huge. Now in the backfield, this is a team last year. They had a huge defensive core. They were the nation's third best passing defense, merely 2 yards per game behind Georgia for the top spot. This year, they're looking to go number one. So
you're hoping to go number one in all facets.
Yes.
Let's just
in all
put it that
facets,
way.
yes. Now, more importantly than any statistical finish, Michigan's record. Now, they should start 7-0 this year, and here's why. You open up the season against Hawaii at home.
Win.
USF.
Win.
Home.
Jeez, that's a huge win.
Colorado.
Win.
Penn State.
Win.
Wisconsin at home.
Win.
Rutgers on the road. So you play 5 straight games at
the
home.
Big House is going to be happy about that.
You play
a lot of football in Ann Arbor off the start of the season.
You play 5 straight at home, and then you play Rutgers on the road.
Why do I feel like Rutgers gives Michigan a little bit of trouble?
Rutgers last year we beat, but they gave us a struggle. But you get a bye on October the 15th. Then it really starts to start up. Then you get Illinois at home. Michigan State, you're playing in East Lansing this year.
Ooh,
Maryland at home. Iowa on the road. Indiana at home, and then Ohio State. So right now,
very favorable schedule.
Very. I think this year, and I said this to Chris the other day, unfortunately, I think Michigan State's going to play backseat to Michigan this year. Michigan State lost Connor Cook. They didn't have the greatest recruiting schedule or recruiting class. I think State's going to lose probably 3 or 4 games this year, unfortunately. Now, with Michigan, I feel like their only loss this year, Ohio State. It's going to be big. I feel like, unless you're careful, Iowa can give you a scare because you're playing Iowa.
You might run into one of these teams. Like
Iowa's
Rutgers.
been tough.
You run into these teams, these teams that you don't think, like Appalachian State.
We saw that happen.
You run into these teams and you take them lightly, and I've witnessed it firsthand on several accounts, and they basically kick your butt, and you barely pull off the win, and it's just you want to avoid a game like that hiccup game, and you lose it. You get beat by Rutgers, and your season.
Now your only loss could come to Ohio State. It probably will come to Ohio State. You're playing in the 2 biggest rivalry games. You're on the road. You're playing in East Lansing and you're playing in Columbus. So those are going to be really hard games.
Heavy home schedule at the start of the season.
I hate that.
Your second half of the season.
I'd rather play on the road to start the season than just have a heavy, because it rotates home away the last 5-6 games.
A lot of nice weather though.
Yeah, a lot of good weather.
Think of it that way. If you're going to these games at the Big House, the weather will be fantastic.
Now, obviously they should start off 7-0. I don't see why they can't demolish Hawaii, USF, Colorado. That should be easily 3-0. Penn State, Wisconsin could give you a slight bit of a scare, but you're at home. You should win that. And then Rutgers. So you should be going on the bye week 7-0. You really should be. Illinois should be a good win. Michigan State, you'll probably win. Now, Maryland is a team that took this team to double overtime last year, as did Indiana. So you got Maryland, Indiana. They could also be scared. So really, your last 4 games could be really big nail biters. Maryland, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio State. Those are going to be 4 games that are going to be very close.
So the second half is when you really want to start watching, where you're going to really be able to tell what the real team is.
Now, if you lose to Ohio State, does that mean that you're going to necessarily not go to the national title? No, but I mean,
depending on how good
Ohio
State
is. If you're both going to that game undefeated, and that's going to be like that's going to be the Big Ten title game, then
that could be a really intriguing game. That is the final game of the season, correct?
Yes, it always is.
So there you have it. That they schedule that perfectly.
They always do.
It's just perfect scheduling. You can't schedule any better than that right there.
Yeah. So
finishing with Ohio State, come on, that's best for business right there. Not stealing a wrestling line.
So they should go 11-1. I got them going 11-1. I think their only loss will probably come. I think they're going to lose to Ohio State. I mean, this is a team that just has always been our Achilles heel. Even going back to years of when Lloyd Carr was our coach, he could never beat him. The only guy that was able to actually beat Ohio State was Brady Hoke. I mean, Brady Hoke was only here for a short time, but he beat him. That was a year though that Ohio State was not ranked. They were going through their little, legal things or whatever, and stuff like that. So, but Ohio State's always going to be your Achilles heel every year.
Seems to be.
So I'm going to go 11-1. I'm going to say that they don't win the national title this year, but they will make the play. They will make the playoffs. They'll probably go to a top tier bowl game like the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl, something like that. But no national title for Michigan this year. What are you saying?
11-1 also. Lost to State.
Ohio State,
yes. But there is that game, because I've seen it in several seasons.
Well, you got to remember too, legends and leaders.
Where they could lose that game to a Rutgers or to one of those other teams. You don't want to get beat against Hawaii or one of these other teams like that.
God,
but you don't want to. If you take one of those teams lightly and they go in there and they wipe the floor with
like
you,
like Appalachian State in 08.
Exactly.
I mean, Hawaii, goddamn, that should be like a 45-0 loss. Same with USF and Colorado. I mean, these should be games you beat them by at least 3 touchdowns. I mean, if you lose to any of those 3 teams and you end your national title hopes within the first 3 weeks of the season, you're garbage. So that would be a huge dagger through the heart for if you're a Michigan fan.
Think it's going to happen.
No.
But I believe that Michigan will probably lose one. Probably to Ohio State at the final season.
Yep.
Final game of the season.
And that's always a heartbreaker when it's the last game.
It is. Losing to Ohio State's always a heartbreaker and a tough pill to swallow.
So go blue?
Go blue. And I hope Michigan State, I am a Michigan fan, but
yeah.
I'm not one of those Michigan fans like, oh, I hate State. Oh, I hate green, peon green.
Yeah.
But I do like.
I'm a rivalry guy.
I'm
same with Ohio State.
I'm all about Michigan. I don't like State. Don't get me wrong. I am pulling for Michigan State. I think they're going to have a little bit of a difficult season without Connor Cook, but I hope they don't have one of those years where they completely just fall apart. So, best to Michigan State as well.
Yeah.
No hard feelings. I'm not one of those guys. I'm really not.
We'll see what happens. It's going to be a very gritty season. I think Michigan. This is, I think, the most hype that Michigan football's had in many, many years. So I'm ready. I mean, I've never been this excited for Michigan football in a long time. So I think it should be.
Are you willing to go down to the big house and pay that $60-$70 fee though?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
That's the only. I've never been there. I've never been to the Michigan Stadium.
I have a couple times.
Yeah.
It's quite remarkable.
It is.
Let me tell you.
You're lodged in there like a tuna can. I'll tell you.
Yes, you sure are. And those bleachers are not very forgiving.
Moving on.
Absolutely.
Yes, the debut of Finn Balor. We have finally seen the Demon, and boy, did we see a lot of them this past Monday on Raw.
Yes,
probably one. Yeah, you saw it. We both saw it up close and personal. This was probably the best Monday Night Raw in probably recent years. I can't
remember the last time I was excited for a Raw. Because I knew who was going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, really, I felt like it sucked the way that he debuted by having him kind of come out, and I think that when his music hit, the fans didn't really react to when he came out until they saw the Balor Club on the Titantron. I feel like he didn't get the pop that I thought he was going to get.
SummerSlam.
Oh, it will.
SummerSlam.
Yeah. When he comes out in the Demon attire.
SummerSlam it'll be the Demon versus Rollins.
Mm-hmm.
He will
Demon versus Jesus?
He will be the guy that comes out as the underdog, I think, in this. I don't think a lot of people are thinking Balor can beat Rollins. I'm jumping right in. I'm jumping right in. Yeah. A lot of you don't know this, but
on Raw,
Balor did have two phenomenal matches on Raw.
Yeah, there was 2 fatal 4-way matches announced right when Raw started, and Finn Balor won the first one. The second one was won by Roman Reigns, and I think it's very apparent now, seeing that Roman Reigns lost 2 straight matches cleanly. Doghouse, eating a lot of dog shit. I think that Roman Reigns' time at the top is pretty much done right now. I feel like he's going to have to work his way now back into Vince McMahon's good spirit. And I see a lot of this like similar like Triple H back in the day.
The curtain call.
Which I think to me was not as big as a deal as this, because when you put drugs into the picture, that's a big no-no, especially how strict they are now in WWE. I don't know who you're going to throw Roman into a feud with now since he's out of the title picture, probably Braun Strowman, or I throw him into the U.S. title picture or Intercontinental title picture with Miz. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is Rusev. I always get confused. I forget what title's on SmackDown or Raw, but I don't know, man. That's going to be a really interesting feud for Roman. But Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins, our wet dream match for SummerSlam. And on the other side of the coin, we were just talking about this guy on Raw that was not getting. You had said too, he's completely like lost his focus. He's lost his push. But Dolph Ziggler back into the championship fold. Well deserved, right?
For SmackDown, yeah, I did happen to check it out.
That was unpredictable.
That was very good. Besides the whole Dolph Ziggler angle, SmackDown sucked.
I mean, really, when you put Bray Wyatt, John Cena, and AJ Styles, and then you put Dolph Ziggler in a match,
don't forget Apollo Crews.
Oh, yeah, Apollo Crews that was just kind of thrown in there for shits and giggles.
Yeah, exactly.
My first instinct was Bray Wyatt. I thought Bray Wyatt was going to win that match because I had already had in the back of my mind they're still going to continue Cena versus Styles at SummerSlam, but I really thought they were going to give Bray Wyatt the torch. I thought the torch would finally be passed to Bray Wyatt as the singles guy, but I guess I thought a little bit too far ahead.
Dolph Ziggler versus Dean Ambrose
will be a good match.
Will be good. So now the two main events for SummerSlam are going to be just
two titles,
watch matches.
Which the second title, it is not going to be called the World Heavyweight title. It is now going to be called the WWE Universal Championship, which I still have to get used to that. I feel like that just screams PG all over it. I was really hoping for WWE World title, something in those lines. I'm not used to Universal Championship. I can't really think, but I've seen some belt designs for this where it could be potential. I mean, they could be fan created, but there was one a guy at work actually showed me today, and it was actually a throwback to the Winged Eagle belt from 1997. Do you remember the Shawn Michaels belt?
I did really like the Winged Eagle belt.
I saw it today, and it looked badass. If that's the design that they're going towards, that's going to be an awesome belt. I think it actually looks more badass than the current WWE Championship. So,
always liked that. That was always been my favorite belt. Now, I'm never going to buy a $300-400 belt, but just saying if I was, and
the Winged Eagle,
you've considered it.
One show.
I know you're not proud of it,
$350 back then. Yeah, I could have bought that belt in a minute.
But if you're going to buy a belt, or personally, if I was going to buy one, it would have been that. But there's nothing that is worth that to me. A championship belt that you're going to walk around with and
people, little kids coming up to you at the shows where you go to a show once a year and that's the only time that you ever use it. I mean, you're not going to get it autographed. You're not going to be one of those stalkerish fans that go to hotels and shit. So, yeah, I would never buy a legitimate replica belt, but that was probably one of my favorites. My second favorite was probably the Undisputed belt. The one that I think JBL had on SmackDown for all them years. That was probably one of my second favorites. I was never really a big fan of the Circle belt, the one that came out in '98. The Attitude Era, they considered it the Attitude Era belt. That wasn't really one of my favorites, but the Winged Eagle was definitely a great belt.
It just looked really professional.
Yes.
And it was really classy, and it had a lot to it, and it seemed to be really popular. I just really liked that belt, and I hope that they put something kind of similar to that, or very similar. Really similar, stick to that.
Right.
Because I'm not liking the whole name of it right now.
Yeah,
so if you can kind of...
it's a throwback to the WWE Universe. I get it, that both shows are trying to separate themselves from the other. Like, you got one show that is dedicating themselves to the Universe, the WWE Universe and Raw, and then you got the SmackDown show, which you got, of course, Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan running, and they are trying to make it all about opportunity. So, and the depth on that show is not as high as Raw. I'm sorry, but when you got Raw already up. That's 3 hours. You got 3 versus 2 in the amount of hours the show is. Then you got pretty much all your tag teams are on Raw. All your women wrestlers are on Raw. And then you got the cruiserweight division. SmackDown has nothing. I mean, thank God we saw some of the divas that got drafted there. You saw Alexa Bliss, the beautiful Eva Marie that every man loves to hate. Shame on you guys.
No, you don't secretly hate her. You just hate her because she's terrible at wrestling.
She is. I think that I really think that's all it is. But I mean, if you're not a guy that wants to bang Eva Marie, you're crazy. Other than that, you got Eva Marie, Alexa Bliss, Nia Jax. Well, she's on Raw, but that's your crush. But
it is not my crush.
Yeah, it is. You like her.
I like her theme song.
Kara, if you're listening.
Nia Jax is not my crush.
Yeah, I heard you say it. I
like her theme song. If we're talking about wrestling diva crushes right now, and if that's really going to be segue into that,
Paige.
It would be Paige.
Yeah.
Or Becky Lynch. It's not...
Lana. Lana's my girl. How you doing?
That's Carmella.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and Carmella. I forgot about her.
Like
so
you just gave the Carmella thing right there. How you doing?
No, that's Enzo and Cass. Carmella is fabulous. So
Carmella was the one.
She just to me, I just don't really get Carmella on SmackDown away from
Big Cass.
Yeah, Big Cass, who she's legitimately with, and Enzo. She made them when they were over in NXT. I mean, being their valet, I feel like she would only add more to that gimmick, that tag team. So I mean, we'll see how she blossoms on SmackDown. But right now, as far as her, Nia Jax, Alexa Bliss, I don't really have a lot of high hopes for. I just think that
Becky Lynch is on SmackDown.
Yeah, Becky. I think
Natalia's on SmackDown.
Becky Lynch, to me, I think is going to be the face of SmackDown for the Divas. And when you got Raw, I mean, obviously you got Charlotte on Raw. So
Sasha Banks, who just
Sasha Banks. Yeah, I mean that was great. That was probably a main event match that could have been the main event of Raw if it wasn't for the last one. I mean, really, when was the last time Raw ended with a Divas main event? It's not been a long. It's been a long time.
Trish and Lita.
Trish and Lita in 2004. So to me, that was just a great match. Sasha Banks, well deserved. I mean, Charlotte had a great run. Don't take anything away from Charlotte. You know, she might look like a man, but man, she had a really good run as Divas champion. Or
Charlotte is a phenomenal athlete.
She is,
and you might not.
You even said it that you won a lot of respect from Charlotte after watching that match.
She's just very good in the ring. She's
very flexible. She is.
Obviously, she's learned from her father, Ric Flair. She's seen a lot of her dad growing up, and her father's in her ear, so she's gonna become a superstar. And she has the right look.
Yeah.
She's not great on the mic, but she's a phenomenal talent. She's very good in the ring. I like what she brings to the ring. Her gimmick is too much like her father's. I kind of wish she'd kind of stray away from the whole robe and the whole thing like that. But that's what she's gonna do for her career, because obviously your father was one of the legendary superstars of all time, so I can't knock it.
Yeah.
Charlotte is a phenomenal talent. If she was terrible in the ring, like kind of like an Eva Marie, she'd be gone already.
Oh, yeah. And that's regardless if Ric Flair was her father or not. I mean, she's obviously perfected her skills in the ring, and she's done a great job. She's not my favorite diva by any means, but I respect her. I think when they dumped Rick, they got rid of him being by her side, I was really beginning to think that Charlotte was getting stale when Rick was with her every week, and I feel like that angle of her throwing him off to the side, I felt like that was really a good stepping stone for her, and I really liked that. So I think we're probably still going to see Sasha versus Charlotte at SummerSlam because she's going to get a rematch.
The rematch.
Which Sasha's going to retain. I don't think she'll drop it back to Charlotte that soon, but good for Sasha Banks though. Very well deserved. So that was a great show. And then SmackDown, they got a lot of work to do. I just saw the ratings were released. So Raw did 3.4 million viewers. SmackDown did 2.7. So almost 1 million less viewers than Raw. They're always going to, no matter what you do.
What do you credit that to? Do you credit that to
being on a Tuesday?
Do you credit that? No days. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not
just show quality.
Show quality. Is it the fact that one, Raw's 3 hours, or is it two, the debut of Finn Balor? Or is it Sasha Banks winning the title?
A lot of more unpredictable moments.
Or is it just SmackDown being always going to be that B-list show? What is that?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that, I mean, I gave Raw an A. I mean, I gave Raw an A up and down the board. I mean, if I were to give it a grade, that was what I'd give it. SmackDown was a B-. I mean, C+ even. I mean, really, if it hadn't have been for Dolph Ziggler winning that match, I probably would have gave it a C+. If they would have gave it to Bray Wyatt, more predictable, as much as I would have liked to see Bray Wyatt over Dolph Ziggler in that match. I probably would have given it a C+, but because Dolph Ziggler has been in like the bottom feeder, kind of working his way back up, I really did not expect him.
I saw Dolph Ziggler being in that match just to be like a filler. Yeah. Like he was just that guy.
Like Apollo Crews.
Because they're like, okay, who else can we put in here?
Well, you have a low depth roster. You're not going to bring Heath Slater in.
And if Randy Orton was not facing Brock Lesnar, Apollo Crews would. Well,
how about Randy Orton having a match with Miz? I thought that was really odd. Like I did not think that they were going to try to tease Orton in the ring before SummerSlam.
I think you want to get Orton in the ring and see how he feels.
Work out the kinks.
See how his shoulder's feeling.
Yeah.
Knock off a little bit of that ring rust because obviously he's been out for 9 months.
Yeah.
coming back from a serious injury.
And he still has it.
And he still looks good.
A little bit stiff in that match, but I mean, it's The Miz.
It is The Miz.
But
Miz is incredible on the microphone,
my God.
not so much in the ring.
Miz is definitely probably one of those most underrated heels of all time, or even in our generation. I mean, the guy is not the greatest wrestler, but the mic skills are up there with CM Punk, in my opinion. I think that when you get him on the mic and then bringing back Maurice and pairing him with her, making him even more of a hated guy because you think, oh my God, what the hell is this like, sawed-off son of a bitch.
And you Google him.
Yeah.
And then you see that they're actually
married,
together.
It's like, how did a guy like Miz get with a girl like Maurice? I mean, unbelievable. And I think that even adds to the heel heat. Mm-hmm. So he's an organic heel, in my opinion. And I think he is just one of those guys. And I respect the hell out of Miz. Mm-hmm. I think he's a very underrated talent.
He's been around a long time. He's wrestled some of the best.
He's been around for like 10 years.
He's gotten beat by some of the best. He's been around a long time.
People seem to forget that Miz has been around since like 2005. He was one of the not Diva Search, but he was one of the Tough Enough competitors from like
Daniel
the first.
Bryan.
Huh?
He was the one that trained Daniel Bryan in that whole session.
Yeah, he's been before. Yeah,
or whatever that was.
NXT, I think. He was before Tough Enough. And with the Miz, I mean, he had like the whole gimmick where he was a tag team with John Morrison. And I mean, he's not a bad wrestler, but he's not one of the greatest. Mm-hmm. Not very graceful in the ring, but I mean, he can put on a show. So
now this is what irritates me about SmackDown,
mm-hmm.
and it's, as much as Raw was just stole the show. I might be a little bit biased because obviously Finn Balor wrestled twice, and finally the debut of Balor. He just turned 35. He's got some time to run with it now. SmackDown. Shelton Benjamin returning for me is just like, okay.
Man.
And people are actually like,
they're excited
you're
about
excited
it.
for Shelton Benjamin being on.
I think,
and
because
then Rhino appears and steers Heath Slater. It's like, oh, Rhino, he's running for Congress or office or what is he running for? Mayor.
I thought mayor
in Dearborn, and it's like, oh yeah, why is he wrestling? Why? To pay off his campaign to try to get votes. Yeah. That's why he's back.
Well, Rhino's never really been gone because he was in NXT. He's been wrestling NXT for a while. Same kind of thing with Eva Marie. I mean, Eva Marie, you can't really call her an NXT diva because she's been up and down, up and down. But there's not just Shelton Benjamin. I've heard rumors of MVP. Jinder Mahal's coming back. I've heard who else is there? Tommy Dreamer is going to be coming back soon. So if you're going to load the SmackDown roster with veteran guys, you got to put them on SmackDown because SmackDown needs the depth.
You're bringing the wrong guys. Okay, now I don't.
Let's see Jeff Hardy. Let's see Kurt Angle.
That's the guys that I would.
Everybody wants to see them.
If you're going to bring guys back, and you want to get reaction, you want to get ratings.
Ratings.
Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy,
Matt Hardy.
Matt Hardy, not so much now. His career, what he's doing with his gimmick now
it's magic.
Atrocious.
No, it's magic.
Oh, it's annoying. I can't watch that.
The whole
garbage.
Brother Nero, dude, that is magic happening right now for TNA. If it wasn't for that, that's getting them ratings. It might not be great, but it's getting them ratings and they're being talked about. They're keeping the Matt Hardy deletion thing, the Brother Nero broken Matt Hardy gimmick angle is keeping TNA afloat right now. That's it.
I don't watch TNA, but I do see some of the things
I think it's cool. I think it's comical. It's different. Very different.
It's just awful. I don't like it at all.
Who else were they saying was going to be coming back? I thought there was more of a list.
More washed up guys?
Yeah, I thought I saw a list.
Let's bring back Bob Holly.
Well, we already got Bob. We got Bob Backlund.
Bob Backlund's back with no teeth.
No teeth?
He doesn't have teeth.
Oh, those are all caps or dentures?
I believe he doesn't have teeth.
Does he really wear dentures?
He accompanied Darren Young out at Payback.
He didn't have teeth?
Not Payback.
Battleground. And he didn't have teeth?
He didn't seem like he had his front teeth.
Oh, my God.
Or something. But
he might wear dentures.
I don't know. But I just... Instead of bringing back all these washed up talents...
Here's your updated guys, all right? So, I already mentioned Jinder Mahal. I want to say all right, I'm going to name off these names. I want to hear you say keep or sell. Meaning keep if you want them on or sell if you don't care. Jinder Mahal.
Sell.
Kurt Hawkins.
Sell.
Melina.
Keep, because SmackDown desperately needs divas.
MVP.
Keep for a short time.
This is a guy that I really want to see back. Carlito.
Garbage. No.
I love this gimmick.
You already have that.
Oh, yeah.
You already have that team.
Well, that's the thing. You bring him back and you have Carlito. That's what that freaking tag team is missing on Raw is Yeah, what are they? The Shining Stars. The Shining Star of the Caribbean. Like, if they had Carlito in there, eating his apple.
It's just terrible.
Tommy Dreamer.
Tommy Dreamer I can live with.
Really? You like Tommy Dreamer?
I can live with Tommy Dreamer.
And Stevie Richards.
No, thank you.
I'll show you. You'll see.
No, thank you.
And that's your list. So I think that I've heard MVP shooting down rumors left and right, but that could all be a ploy. Molina, I'd love to see back. Those are my three.
No, this is what bothers me about this, is that there's so much talent in NXT. Mm-hmm. Eric Young, Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, Shinsuke Nakamura.
They need more time.
They're all guys around Balor's age or a little bit younger.
I see what you're
older.
saying, yeah.
Why are you bringing back these guys that have already had their time in the spotlight?
To put over the young guys. To put them over.
You bring in Samoa Joe, you bring in Rude, you bring in Young.
But they're not going to go over there. They want to be put over. They're not going to come in there and put over other guys that are the same age or, if not, older than them. You
need to give these guys an opportunity. I don't want to see.
But NXT has got to stay afloat.
Benjamin
I understand why. I mean, obviously, it sucks that they had to bring up Mojo Rawley instead of Nakamura. I mean, Mojo Rawley got brought up because they're bringing back the hype bros with Zack Ryder. It's a shame because I really thought Zack Ryder was going to get that U.S. title push, but that's obviously not going to happen. But Mojo Rawley, garbage, wasn't the right guy to bring up. In my opinion,
I understand.
No way Jose could have got brought up. I thought
not yet.
No,
his gimmick,
he's getting there.
His gimmick will die off, and I think when he comes up, I don't think his gimmick will last.
No way, Jose.
I don't think the fans are gonna take to him as much as they are in NXT.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I think he'll get a silent reaction. But obviously, you want to see Nakamura, you want to see Samoa Joe get brought up here soon. We're already going to see Bayley. I think Bayley, that was a one-off appearance at Battleground, but I think you're also going to be seeing her come up after SummerSlam. I heard that she's going to be coming up. So Bayley will be up here soon. But right now, I mean, you pretty much lost your entire NXT divas. I get it
why you can't.
You got to keep some.
Why NXT can't just say, okay, we're going to send Nakamura and Joe, because Nakamura has to face Joe.
He has to win the title.
I think that is the next idea.
It is. It was actually announced tonight at TakeOver Brooklyn. It will be Joe versus Nakamura.
And there you have it. Is that Balor left. Balor was like, okay. They had Balor lose Nakamura, so that way Nakamura. That means Balor's going.
And Nakamura's staying.
And obviously.
And in my opinion, you can say that Nakamura's done everything, but he has to have the belt. Everybody that comes up to NXT, or from NXT to WWE, has to hold the belt. You know? We saw it with Kevin Owens. Mm-hmm. Sami Zayn. They've all been former NXT champions. So, in my opinion.
And also, I just looked at Twitter. Finn Balor is still touring with NXT.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kevin Owens did too. Kevin Owens made appearances on both shows. As you remember, he actually came to WWE with the NXT title.
So Balor's not completely done with NXT because he's still going on tour with NXT.
Yeah.
And that's what makes, I think, the brand split is a little bit easier, is the fact that Balor is able to show up on Raws, but he's able to go on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday tours to these shows.
That extra day off.
Mm-hmm. Because now with the brand extension splits, these guys are able to have more time off, I believe. I believe it's easier.
Well, they're doing. Schedule. I don't know about that. I think they're bringing in more live shows with the brand extension. Because you're on one TV show a week, you get to do more live events. I think I heard that they increased the live events from like 200 to like 250 or 260 live events. So they are increasing their live events. So it's not necessarily they're getting a break, but they're not on TV as much.
Okay.
But no, I think that's perfectly fine. Like that, we've seen NXT guys be at Raw live events. I believe Finn Balor, he appeared at Raw events even before he got called up to the main roster. So Nakamura, same way. Samoa Joe, they can still appear on like all these live shows that are not televised because they don't really fit in with the storylines. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. So,
does have to. I'm not going to talk about SummerSlam predictions yet. But what needs to happen in the two big matches at SummerSlam? Don't say winners. We'll talk about that in future weeks.
I think. All right. So you're talking about the two title matches.
Balor, Rollins, Ziggler, Ambrose.
So no winners. You want
no winners. Just
so what do you want? Like you want a result?
What are you going to do?
An aftermath?
Because Rollins has been losing. He hasn't had that.
You're obviously going to have a first-time champion of the Universal Championship. It's going to go to either Finn Balor or Rollins. In my opinion, I don't feel like Finn Balor is ready. So. I don't want to predict a winner, but I really don't think that Finn Balor is going to get the championship. I feel like it's going to go to Rollins simply because, Finn Balor will get put over. Rollins will put over Finn Balor, but at the same time, Finn Balor will put over Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is money. He is the face, really, of your company. He's the face. He took away the spotlight from Roman because Roman messed up. So now you have the arguably the biggest heel in the company in Seth Rollins, and he is a big heel because the fans love him. They love to hate him, but he's getting a huge reaction. And, I mean, I just think that he is the better guy for the belt. I mean, he's best for business.
But you do have 4 weeks until SummerSlam.
You got to build.
So you're going to have
build it. You got to have 4 good Raws.
You got to have some, and you're going to probably see, I would say, two good Raws and
fillers,
and two Raws that are like,
meh, yeah.
As much as I want to say we're going to have 4 good Raws until SummerSlam.
Who do you have the upper hand? Who goes into SummerSlam with the upper hand, Finn or Seth?
I would say Finn.
I think you got to give it to Finn. You got to get the fans kind of chirping a little bit. You got to make them go into there thinking that's going to be unpredicted. Because I'm sure a lot of fans are going in there thinking that Finn's going to lose. I don't think a lot of people.
Most fans, even myself, being a huge Balor supporter, I'm realistic. I know that Balor in his first big match against Rollins, it's going to be fantastic.
Oh yeah, they are. It's going to be match of the year.
Something I'm going to be at the edge of my seat for, but I know Rollins is going to win.
It'll be match of the year candidate, no doubt about it.
So if you really want to shake things up and throw everybody a loop,
swerve,
and that huge curveball, have
Finn Balor
win. I don't see it happening, but you got to have him win.
That's a huge rub, man.
It is.
That's Vince saying. And not to mention, it ain't like this belt's on SmackDown. I think if Finn Balor was on SmackDown, if it was Finn Balor versus Dean Ambrose, I feel like Finn Balor would win that match simply because it's SmackDown, and I feel like that would get them talking. SmackDown needs ratings. They need people watching. So you need less predictable shit and more unpredictable stuff to happen on SmackDown. So if Finn Balor, thank God he didn't get drafted there, but if he would have got drafted to SmackDown and he was put in against Dean Ambrose, he would beat Dean Ambrose, in my opinion. But because he's facing Seth Rollins, who is the open face of the company, I feel like it's going to be an awesome 20, 25-minute match. But Finn Balor will come up short, and Seth Rollins will become the new Universal Champion.
Now switch gears to Ziggler and Ambrose.
This is up in the air. Because
now, how do you go from absolutely this guy losing every single match to Baron Corbin, getting buried, constantly losing matches to these mediocre guys? It doesn't seem... And then he gets drafted to SmackDown, and then boom. The level of opportunity is there.
I feel like they have 4 weeks until SummerSlam. They need to tell a story here. They need to tell a story with Ambrose and Ziggler, because Ziggler can't just go in here with, I think he can't, I think Ambrose has to go in with the upper hand. Ambrose goes in with the upper hand, and then Ziggler wins the belt. I think Ziggler needs to win the championship to kind of, to give him the momentum of people kind of getting behind him again. Because this is 2 faces we're talking about. And we got a heel, technically in Rollins, against a big-time face in Balor, but you got 2 faces going at it for the title. That's a very rare occurrence.
It is.
But I feel like Dolph Ziggler, it's not very good storytelling when you have a guy that's just been bottom-feeding for the last 2 years and kind of being in mid-card matches and losing them, no doubt, to then just kind of elevating him to the title. So in these 4 weeks, you got to really have him winning matches. You got to have him go on a winning streak. And then kind of play it up in the storylines of like he's rejuvenated, he's gone. That's really all you need.
Went to SmackDown, and his career is fully turned around.
It's the land of opportunity. We've heard it from Shane and Daniel Bryan. So you have him go in there and just kind of rejuvenate himself. He's a whole new guy now. He's still the show off, but he's just got a whole new attitude. And if you got to even turn him heel, what if you turn Ziggler heel?
That is, I think that what you're going to have to do.
That would be great.
I think you're going to have to turn him heel.
You got 4 weeks to do it.
But this is what I'm encouraged about for SummerSlam is that these 2 matches,
great wrestling matches,
are, and that's a word that everybody's forgetting.
Not entertainment.
It's not entertainment. It's wrestling. SummerSlam is going to have some good matches.
Then you got the non-wrestling match, like Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar, which is going to be suplexes and
punches
and
uppercuts,
and RKOs everywhere. So that match will be probably a sloppy match, which I will predict Brock Lesnar will get the win in. That 2 weeks are on there. Now you're going to probably more than likely have the 3rd incarnation of John Cena versus AJ Styles. Another good wrestling match. John Cena can wrestle people. He can. And AJ Styles will carry him. I feel like AJ Styles will finally get the victory. Soccer Mom himself will finally get that elusive victory over John Cena in a major pay-per-view. Which won't hurt Cena. It won't really hurt or help
I would say
AJ.
the Club versus
New Day for the titles. Yep. I feel like they're not going to have to. They can't do the Freebird rule, so they're going to have to pick 2, and I think they're probably going to do Kofi and Xavier.
Big E.
Big E and Kofi.
Big E and Kofi.
And then
Xavier never wrestles.
Xavier sometimes wrestles, but
not in the title match.
He just does the trombone outside the ring.
He's the one that's the outside instigator.
So you do Anderson and Gallows versus.
Now this is just this is not official for anyone listening.
This is predictions.
This is just what we think is going to happen at SummerSlam or what the card might look like in a couple weeks. But SummerSlam is starting to shape up to be a pretty darn good show if everything goes as planned. And the big plan is, where's Roman Reigns going to wrestle? Is he
SummerSlam?
Yeah,
what do you do? I mean, right now, I gotta do this because I gotta pull up the Raw roster. I gotta see where Roman Reigns falls in on this team. Because
we're trying to pick opponents for wrestling.
Yes.
That's what I'm doing right now. Is I want to make the best opportunities for guys for success, no matter if it's a guy that is a bottom feeder or if it's a mediocre talent or if it's a top tier talent. Pairing guys that will have the best quality wrestling match that will make you entertained, that will make you say, wow, this is worth the price of admission.
So, we've already pretty much established our main matches. So, Seth, obviously, I'm going to check off guys that are on the list right now for Roman Reigns that he can't face. Rollins is gone. Charlotte's facing Sasha. Balor's facing Rollins. Lesnar's versing Orton. New Day is versing Gallows and Anderson. Sami Zayn is more than likely going to be facing Kevin Owens for the final time. Chris Jericho is not in a match with anybody. That's the first guy that comes up to mind.
Okay.
And then you got Rusev, who currently doesn't really have an opponent for the U.S. title.
It'll be Zack Ryder and Mojo Rawley, or one of the two of them.
A triple threat?
No. It'll be something like Ryder against,
Rusev with Mojo, and then, you know damn well that if you put Roman Reigns in a match against Rusev, he's basically becoming I don't want to say the John Cena, because John Cena, when he came back from injury, he went to the mid-card, but it wasn't because he was forced to, it was because he chose to. He doesn't want to be the center of attention like he used to be.
John Cena is kind of backing away from that spotlight.
He is.
Kudos to him, and much respect.
There's only two other guys here that I haven't mentioned that Roman Reigns could possibly face, and that's Cesaro and Sheamus.
And Braun Strowman, which I mentioned.
Braun Strowman is actually, yes. Wait, Braun Strowman? He's on SmackDown, I thought. Oh, no, he is on Raw. Wait, where is Braun Strowman?
Bray Wyatt is on SmackDown.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the TV results. Yes, you have the Golden Truth.
No.
You have Titus O'Neil.
No.
Darren Young, obviously, will be in a match. Sin Cara, Jack Swagger.
No.
Mark Henry, Braun Strowman, Bo Dallas.
Possibly no.
And Curtis Axel.
No, it's going to be Braun Strowman or Chris Jericho.
Yeah. Now, that's the thing. Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns would not necessarily hurt Roman Reigns' momentum because it's two big guys. And you're also going to try to push Braun Strowman. Now, we saw something on Raw that was terrible. Braun Strowman versus that guy with no chin that had the fucking Offspring tattoo. Oh, that was horrible. Oh, that guy has been the center of internet memes all week. That poor guy. But yeah, that was a terrible squash match. Same thing with Nia Jax against Britt Baker. That was terrible. I mean, what the hell was up with that? Two squash matches
is this, back to 90s?
Yeah.
Raw?
Yeah, remember back when they used to have squash matches? Like, remember local guys?
Viscera versus some local guy?
Yeah. Big Show versus some local guy. Like, they would always interview him in the ring and say that they're from that home state. They get a cheap pop.
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio.
Yay! And then they get annihilated in 2 seconds.
Oh, goodness.
But, yeah, I'm with you, dude. I really think that it's probably between Chris Jericho, Sheamus, or Braun Strowman.
Braun Strowman makes sense as where you could put him over to an extent, and Braun Strowman feels like he's wrestling that big dog in the fight that Roman Reigns has been the past couple months since the suspension. It also brings Roman Reigns into a match against a guy that is bigger than him and
could lose
him.
Yeah. Now, if he loses against Braun Strowman, I mean, you know you're at the bottom of the totem pole. I'm not saying that Braun Strowman...
Or you can have a decent match and you can maybe put Roman Reigns over a little bit more and maybe give him some sort of stability and have him go against Jericho and have this feud and have Jericho just destroy him on Jericho's talk shows and make fun of him. and
stupid idiot,
and
calling him all these names and
blast him for
the doping thing.
His doping.
Now that's going to be interesting because we saw how well
I could write some good scripts for Chris Jericho,
yes.
Roman Reigns.
Oh, I could. And that's a big deal because we saw how much they put Roman on blast while he was gone under suspension, especially Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins.
Just totally, I mean, you know that wasn't totally him. I mean, that's WWE management saying, all right, we're really going to make him look silly. But now with him being back, do you really think that they're going to bring it up in front of him in his face? Seeing how ballsy Vince is going to go on that one. If you're Vince and you're that pissed off and you really want to make an example of Roman.
If it's Chris Jericho,
yes. Oh yeah. Drink it in, man. The PEDs are kicking in, man. The gift, and then just see Jericho get Superman punched by Roman, and there you go.
Yeah, that sounds about
right.
So,
yeah, I think realistically, Strowman or Jericho will probably be your two opponents for and
you'll probably
Reigns.
see something on Raw, because obviously...
You have 4 weeks to prove. So really, this Monday night, we better see a new feud for Roman Reigns begin. Or the start of it, anyway, because you got to have at least...
Or you going to keep Roman Reigns off TV?
No.
That just doesn't make sense.
No.
I wouldn't quite understand
that. When that match was over with Finn Balor, when he lost to him, he obviously got interviewed, which is very hokey. I'm not a big fan of the interviews after matches and
after
shit.
you lose, like, how do you feel?
Renee Young,
let's
hey, Roman. He's like, he looks
ESPN.
back. I really thought that at that moment, he was going to turn heel. I thought that was going to be the moment, because he kind of like looked back at Finn, and I thought he was going to go back in there
and spear him,
Superman punch him. That would have been great. I really wouldn't have hated that. But he decided to keep his cool and said that, I hope Finn beats Seth Rollins because I want a piece of him again for the championship. So one day...
I respect that dude.
Yes.
Or something.
He does. He respects him. So we will see eventually. I think we'll see by WrestleMania, Roman will be back in the title hunt. I would say so. I don't see him eating that much shit, for another 4 or 5 months, but he's going to go through a lot of crap. I think he's going to be mid-card for a while, but...
If he is really going to be in the doghouse and he's really going to eat the crap off people's shoes... You might as well put him against Braun Strowman. Let Strowman beat him then.
Yeah, just keep losing matches. You're getting paid. You're not getting paid any less than what you were making. So your pride's going to get hurt for a while.
That's the biggest thing. Roman Reigns was at the top. He was champion.
And now, like, what's the new saying going to go? Because before it was, you got to make him look strong. Now you got to make him look weak. You got to beat the living piss out of him. So now it's like a whole new ball game for Roman Reigns.
I think it's Vince McMahon.
Oh, yeah.
But Vince McMahon still gave Roman Reigns that main event at Raw.
Yeah.
Now that is still...
That was a good tease. That basically said to everybody, look, we're going to still give him the spotlight, but we're going to break his heart at the end of the matches, because look what happened at Battleground. I mean, he got beat clean. Usually, we could have saw Ambrose get pinned. Mm-hmm. Or, I'm sorry, we could have saw Rollins get pinned. It didn't have to be Roman, but Vince wanted Roman to feel the heat. And we saw the same thing against Finn Balor. Like, really? Finn Balor in a real-life fight would not beat Roman Reigns, folks. Let's not kid ourselves, but... It was
entertainment.
It was a good wrestling match. It was a good wrestling match, no doubt about that. So, other than that, I got nothing.
No, we can kind of wrap this up with a pretty bow. I don't think there's anything really coming up this weekend. Is there? Jeff Gordon is racing in his second race.
I'm going up north.
You are going up north?
I am excited. I am going up north. Going to hopefully get to ride the four-wheelers. They ran fine this past weekend. My cousins were up there, and they were tearing up the trails. So going up for a few days, Friday to Sunday, and maybe go to the lake. Weather's not supposed to be too hot. It's actually cooling off up there.
That'd be fantastic. It has been heat wave city
yes.
here recently.
So I'm ready for a much-needed vacation. And and Sunday, Jeff Gordon will be racing his second race at Pocono. I will be back home to see that. And with that, I think we are going to call this one a podcast.
That sounds good.
So on behalf of myself and Mr. Dan Bartley, we will see you guys next week.